Hello there. We're starting back up with this. I'm actually gonna have to remember that I was smart and wrote this down, but I also tested out the what page was it? This one? I think it was this one. I was the one where it's like, surely that first one where I was like one of these three. This one maybe? Not this one for sure. Distress of the Alright. So I can do this. But I'm gonna skip that for now. Murder. Gonna skip that as well. So these are both the ones I have unlocked. Serious death of the fruity couple. Obviously that's not here yet. Let's move on to page 3. I have one here that I'm allowed to do. Aries background, which is this. So I could do that. Or I could do some more of these. I think I have... Oh, I still have her. So let's do this one. Required first. My name is Satsuko Hojo. But Hojo is my current father's family name. I was also Satsuko Hatake, Satsuko Yoshizawa, and also Satsuko Matsura, because of my previous fathers. I'm still not used to be calling Hojo-san. If someone calls me Satsuko, then I know that person is talking to me, because Satsuko is the name I've been using since I was born. I don't understand why my mother keeps getting married and divorced. Mm-hmm. Would you really change your daughter's last name that often? Like, I get it, your new father wants to feel welcome and whatnot, but still. If she's going to get a divorce, why does she get married? If she's married, why does she get a divorce? I've asked her before, but depending on the situation, her answer was different, because they are. When I asked her when she was married, she got angry. When I asked her after she got divorced, she cried. I don't understand the meaning of marriage. So I have no interest in drawing pictures of a bride in a wedding dress. I don't think I'll ever get married. I don't want to keep changing my child's last name. My teacher once asked if I liked my mother. I think it was when I was in kindergarten in Okonomiya. That was a very difficult question, because sometimes I loved her very much, and sometimes I hated her very much. I couldn't decide. When my mother was nice, she smiled all the time. She made us happy. She thanked me for being her daughter. When my mother wasn't nice, she frowned all the time. She treated my brother and me very poorly. She told me I should have never been born. My teacher asked me if I liked my father. That was a very easy question, because I always hated him very much, no matter who he was. The new fathers always treated me nicely at first, as if I was their real daughter. They always told me I could think of them as my real father, but they couldn't be my real father. Besides, I didn't even know my real father's face. How could I call them my father? I couldn't. That was disgusting. Right before divorce, my fathers always became very irritated with me. They treated me like a cockroach. They told me they didn't have money to feed me. They threw things at me, and they locked me out on the veranda. Reminds me of Digimon Adventure too. I was told I could forget about them because that was all in the past. I think that was a different teacher from a different school. You don't just forget. Maybe that's true. Because ever since Hojo became my father, my mother has been smiling. I haven't seen them get into a fight like I have seen happen just before a divorce. They have little arguments here and there, but those don't lead to a divorce, and they always make up. But I'm sure they'll get a divorce sooner or later. Then it'll be the same old stuff with the family court, divorce settlements, a night flight, and child support. So who knows how long this Hojo will be my father. That's why I don't ever feel like calling him that. So what's her last name when they divorce? He also treated me well at first. But when I didn't call him father, even after he asked me repeatedly, he became irritated. They'll get a divorce soon. When my father gets into this mood, a divorce is on the way. After a divorce, it's my mother's turn to be irritated with me. Then she'll tell me she shouldn't have had me, or she can't be happy because of me. Why is my existence causing problems for my mother? This reminds me, why is it always like one of the youngest characters having this issue? Satoko in this, and then in Umineko, it's Maria. I asked my brother, and he told me, if you have children, it's not easy to find someone to get married with. To my mother, remarriage is very important, so I can understand having children around will cause problems. I think I finally understand why I'm a nuisance to her. I asked my brother something else. Why are children hated by new fathers? Well, that's simple. That's because family members all have different roles. A mother's job is to love her children. A father's job is to love the mother. That means I'm a nuisance to bother both my mother and my father. My brother is more mature than me, so they don't look down on him as a nuisance. But maybe I am. No, I'm definitely a nuisance. So now I know. Both my mother and father want me dead. But if they kill me, they'll be caught. But that doesn't mean they won't kill me. If I were to look down the cliff, and if no one was around, my mother and father would push me off for sure. My father has become abnormally nice to me recently. He started to act that way ever since I made the fake call. I know for sure that it's just part of a plot to kill me, so I won't let them trick me. I'm sorry. Lately, when I listen very carefully, I can hear a voice apologizing. The voice sounds similar to mine. Her mother must be telling her that she shouldn't have been born. I'm sorry. But I won't apologize like that. I'll live. I'm going to strike back. I'll kill before I get killed. I'm sorry. That's how you learn Satoko became a critical terminal patient. Or not, probably not terminal, I think. I think it was just like level 4, I think it's called. Where it's like danger zone, but not all the way there. Let's pull up my list again. I want to do either Rika, conflict between them, or siblings. Conflict and the self-introduction. Let's keep going with oneers. Strawberry milk candy. That's probably this, I assume. Maybe not. New Wind, preview lots. Let's get started with this one. I ran into Satoko while on my way to the grocery store for my mother. Satoko said she was going there too, so we decided to go together. After exchanging our shopping lists, it became easy to guess what the other family would be having for dinner. Satoko's family is having grilled fish and cooked vegetables. We're having Salisbury steak. My, that sounds so very good. I don't mind the grilled fish, but it's the vegetables I'm less fond of. I'm certain there's still plenty of pumpkin left from the other day. Then I bet you'll be getting a lot tonight. Poor Satoko. I don't appreciate knowing that pumpkin is going to show up on the dinner table. Gee, I'm sure Rika doesn't appreciate knowing that her death is coming. Me. You don't like pumpkin no matter how it shows up. Rika, you have some food you're not fond of, don't you? That's right. You don't like daifuku, cream puffs, or anything sweet, don't you? It's not that I don't like those things. I just choose not to eat them. If I wanted to, I could eat sweets forever. I could even eat pumpkin pie too. Nippon. Oh, it's not fair that you aren't a picky eater. Conversations like this are how I have fun. Satoko is my best friend. I usually don't like grocery shopping, but if I'm with Satoko, I can make it into an enjoyable evening stroll. Near the supermarket, there's a grocer's and other shops forming a little shopping district. The grocery store is busy this time of day. All the housewives in Hinamizawa gather here to shop. Since Satoko and I have different things to buy, we decided to do our shopping separately. Welcome! Oh, Rika-chama. Are you shopping for your mother? What a good girl. Nippon. I'm a good girl who can go shopping by herself. Wow, you really are a good girl. Here, I'll give you a list. There were several candies for the owner's occasional asthma attack inside a sieve full of change hanging in the front. He picked out a sweet from there and gave it to me. It was my favorite flavor, strawberry milk. Ah! I put it in my pocket so I can brag about it to Satoko later. I get a lot of fun out of teasing Satoko and making her jealous. She always overreacts, so I never get bored when I'm with her. What are you having for dinner tonight, Rikuchama? Ground pork. We're making Salisbury steak. We're going to put flower-shaped fried eggs on top and draw pictures on them with ketchup. Oh, that's cute. Oh, that sounds like fun. I enjoyed that conversation while filling my shopping basket. But then I overheard some woman whispering. They're talking about something that's a little harsh. They're talking about Satoko. How long do those village traders plan to stay here? They should just leave. They don't even have the guts to go shopping themselves and make their daughter do it instead. The woman went on and on. Yeah, damn Rika. Why aren't her parents shopping? Damn traders. Ever since the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family got into a huge fight at the explanatory meeting for the dam project, the Hojo family has been ostracized within the village. At first, there were a significant number of families in favor of leaving like the Hojos, but the main branch of the Sonozakis led a push to completely solidify the village's opinion, and as that tone of unified resistance grew stronger, the pro-evacuation families steadily grew quiet. The public harassment led by the Sonozakis and Kimiyoshis, two of the three families with powerful influence on the village, also played an effect too. The Sonozaki family made the Hojo family into an example, to ensure there would be no more pro-evacuation supporters. The ancestors of the villagers have lived here for generations, and the villagers also know that they themselves will be buried in this village, so this harassment put a lot of pressure on them. Who was it that agreed to make the Hojo family the leader of the pro-evacuation group at the explanatory meeting? Those same people no longer said anything. They even joined in on harassing the Hojo family. The harassment they faced then became pressure from the entire village. The Hojo family is hardly wealthy. They haven't paid the town council fees in a long time. When things were peaceful, nobody said anything about it. But now that the wind was blowing in a different way, the Hojo family was asked to pay off all their late council fees immediately. It wasn't an amount they couldn't afford, but the Hojos recognized a fight was being picked with them, and they responded to it. And so, the Hojo family quit the town council. But that only played right into the village's evil plan. Making an enemy of the town council meant facing vicious harassment. For example, the place the Hojos dumped their trash was a provisional dumping site established by the town council and the waste management department. Under the council agreement, only council members could use it. Ever since the day the Hojo family quit the village council, their trash bags were returned to their front door. Furthermore, all the bags were torn. On top of that, a sign went up on the hedge road near the Hojo family. It said, "Private road, no trespassing. Only council members permitted." A stubborn old man stood and guarded the road, saying that he would not let any of the Hojo family members pass through. A private road is private property opened up to the public, so it looks just like a normal road. However, as private property, the owner can forbid anyone else to pass through whenever they like. More and more, the village piled on vicious harassment. The fear of antagonism spread through the entire village, and people became afraid that if they supported the Hojo family, they'd go through the same thing. This had made the Hojo family even more isolated. Those accursed Hojos. How dare they do this to the village? The grown-ups haven't told their kids about what's going on, so Satoko isn't harassed in any way at school. But it wasn't hard to imagine she probably spent her days feeling so anxious she could hardly breathe. Even the woman whispering in here aren't saying anything directly to Satoko. But it's not like she doesn't notice their muttering in the cold stares. When did this village become so cold towards her? As her best friend, it's very sad for me. Satoko's shopping experience is nothing like mine. When I say hello or buy things, I usually get treats or a discount, but that doesn't happen to Satoko. On the contrary, she's served last on purpose, and sometimes shop owners even pretend they don't hear her. Obviously, people don't want to have anything to do with her. Satoko had been weaving through the housewives crowding the shop, telling the fishmonger what she wanted, but she kept getting ignored. She decided to keep her smile and pretend she doesn't mind, but I know. It was far too painful for her to endure. At that point, Satoko dropped her coins on the ground. Maybe her finger got stuck on something when she was trying to put the change back into her wallet. I ran through the crowd to help her pick them up. But as I did, I noticed something. Satoko dropped a lot of coins and is struggling to pick all of them up. But nobody is helping her. It's not just that. It's almost like they're acting like they don't even see her there. Satsuko isn't expecting anyone to help her, since she's the one who dropped them. But, there are so many people around, and not even one is trying to aid her. Satsuko, I'll help you. I'm okay, Rika. That reaction is all I need to tell how hurt she is. Furthermore, when I started to help Satsuko, other housewives started to pick up the coins too, as if it's the natural thing to do. So they can only help if a shrine maiden of the Furude family does? If I didn't help, they would have disregarded her completely. Yeah, I'd call them out, stop stealing her coins. And the fact that other people helped only because I did hurt Satsuko even more. I grabbed the coins from the housewives without thanking them. I'd rather spit at them than to do that. So, thank you very much, Rika. Everyone. If she didn't thank them, people would talk about that too. Satsuko forced out her words of gratitude. The housewives looked down at her with blank expressions. I can't stand this. I can't stand what Satsuko is going through right now. If we're done, let's go, Satsuko. Sure. I grabbed Satsuko's arm and pulled her away. I was frustrated, sad, and bitter. What has Satsuko done? Reality is just too cruel. Everyone loves me. But can I share that love with Satsuko? Satsuko must be wondering why people treat me so differently. I shouldn't come shopping with her. Or rather, I should have done her shopping instead. Satsuko. What is it, Rika? I feel bad that you dropped your coins. So here's something that'll make you happy. I wanted to at least ease her pain a little bit, so I pulled out the strawberry milk candy I just received. But Satsuko refused to take it. That candy was given to you. My hand froze. She saw me getting this candy. That person wanted you to eat it. So if I did, it'd be rude. Satsuko turned her back on me and kept walking. Without even saying goodbye, she continued on to her house with the shopping bags in her hands. I only wanted to ease her pain, but I ended up rubbing salt in her wound. How can I call myself her best friend? If I could, I would have crushed the candy right there. That unlocks another one. Like, I should probably be editing my stuff so I can add in all the new things. Oh well. Now I've got that, so I can do Mion. What else can I do? Ari's background is a bit iffy for now. What else do I have? Quarry. These are fine, but it's like, I could pass on them for now. Ari's background. So I think I only have siblings on this page. Rock candy as a treat. That's a bit away still. Steps. Ah, here it is. So I just did that, but we'll pass on that for now and go back to Mion. Mion-san! Your friend is here! I heard the housekeeper's voice. Our house and the front yard are huge, so unlike normal houses, ringing the doorbell or yelling my name, repeatedly asking to play, won't work. Okay, thank you. Who is it? Riku Furude-chama. Oh, finally. Can you tell Granny that Riku-chama is here? I think she's on the porch. I'll get the watermelon. Oh, here's the watermelon. Granny received many beautiful watermelons from somebody, so she wanted to share. I just called the Furude house a short time ago, and Riku-chan is here to pick one up. Did she come on our bicycle? I can't remember if it has a big enough basket. I pulled the watermelon from the well while thinking about that. The cold water in the well has refrigerated the watermelon, and the condensation makes it look delicious. The 3 members of the Furude family will enjoy it for at least 2 nights. Me? Am I supposed to take it home? I thought... What? Didn't your dad tell you? The priest answered the phone and I thought I told him to come pick it up. Maybe I wasn't clear enough, or maybe he misunderstood me completely. But she's here to eat the watermelon, not to take it home. Besides, the small basket on Riku-chan's bicycle won't hold the watermelon, And it's too dangerous for her to ride while holding it in her hands. Yeah, the balance. Mion, why don't you help Rikuchama take the watermelon? There's no way she can ride her bicycle while carrying it. Me. I can hold the watermelon. No, that's too dangerous. If something happened to you, I wouldn't know what to say to Oyashiro-sama. Mion will help you. Okay, I will. I'll go say hello to the priest, too. No matter whether she rides or pushes her bicycle, Rikuchan's hands will be occupied. So I'm going to carry the watermelon. Yep, that makes sense. I'd do that, too. The sky is turning auburn in the sunset. The cool breeze feels good on my sandaled feet. The plastic bag I'm carrying contains the watermelon, and also some small bags of rock candy. Oh, there's the rock candy, too. If her mother finds them, she'll take them away, so we decided to eat them before we got to her home. We opened the bags and enjoyed the rock candy. Rikuchan isn't an exception. Whenever kids from our neighborhood comes to our house for errands, Granny gives them some treats. Aw, that's cute. Actually, that's a pretty common rule here in Hinamizawa, except for the Hojos. It's funny, but sometimes when parents aren't watching, siblings will fight over who gets to take the circular notice to the next house over. Why don't they just go together? So these bags of rock candy are like tips for them. Of course, she normally doesn't give out this much. Usually it's just a little piece of it. Granny's being extra nice to Rikuchama. I feel bad getting all this candy. Don't worry, Granny loves you. You should just thank her and put a big smile on your face, that's all. Do you get lots of treats? I used to. But at this age they don't give me any. If they did though, I would probably feel I was being treated like a little kid. I'm being treated like a child then. That's okay, enjoy it while you can. When you become as old as me, you won't get any, even if you wanted some. As we talked about ordinary things, I noticed Rikuchan seemed a little sad. What's wrong? Whenever I run errands, I get candy as a treat. But Satoko doesn't get any even if she comes with me. I think I can think of so many reasons why. Not only Satoko, but everyone in the Hojo family is being treated poorly in the Hinamizawa. And the Sonozaki family are the ones who instigated that. The 2 dam supporters have died in an accident already. They did? But the malice against the Hojo family is still going. It's directed against Satoko and Satoshi, their children, and the aunt and uncle who are taking care of them. Okay, I think I skipped ahead a bit too much in the past then, because I haven't had the quarry deaths yet. I'm pretty sure their parents died in 2nd year. The big fight between the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family at the explanatory meeting started all this. But that was the Hojo couple, and it shouldn't have anything to do with the children and their aunt and uncle. But the idea that the Hojo family are traitors evolved on its own. Therefore, anyone bearing the Hojo name is to be treated poorly, especially new people coming to the village named Hojo. The aunt and uncle weren't dam supporters, so over time, the attacks towards them should have stopped. But they're rather odd, and they keep having trouble with their neighbors. They don't follow the community rules, they don't do their community duties, and they spray pesticide while their neighbor's laundry is still hanging outside. They often get into fights with the other villagers. They'd be hated even without the dam. Therefore, the Hojo family continues to be treated poorly. But none of that should have anything to do with Satoko and Satoshi. Satoko and Satoshi are often depressed at school. I tried to leave the conflict between the 2 families aside, but I wonder how they really feel about that. From their point of view, I'm just another member of the family that keeps harassing them. I don't want any of that at school. That's why I try to be their friend while we're there. How can we get that to extend outside, too, instead of staying in the school? That'd be pretty difficult. The Hojo family made enemies of the 3 families. They were branded as traitors, and that's still considered the truth. It wouldn't mean anything if one person suggested an end to the hostilities just because the events around the dam are history now. On the contrary, that would just put them in the same position. Unfortunately for Satoko and Satoshi, the only thing they can do is wait patiently until the issue withers away. All I can do for them is provide an oasis until that day comes. So how long do they have to wait? I don't know, probably about 4 years. The dam conflict lasted for several years. They were branded back then, so it might take years to clear up too. Do you mean they won't be forgiven until they become adults? Will Satoko have to live out her childhood going through that? That's pretty Pretty miserable, isn't it? Me. We're their friends, aren't we? Sure. They're my friends. We're all buddies. Then isn't there something we can do to help our friends? What exactly can we do? Even if the Sonozaki family declares the damn conflict is over, so the Hojo family are no longer outcasts, that won't solve the problem. It should. It's not that simple. In the first place, Granny hates the Hojo family and won't suffer their name to be mentioned in her presence. It's not a matter of someone forgiving another. It's a matter of very complicated ties between the people in this village. It's absolutely terrifying to have them as your enemies. Everyone knows that very well, and that's why they maintain good relationships with their neighbors. However, if you make enemies out of them, you'll have to face the consequences. That's the unwritten law of the Japanese community. And the Sonozaki family is part of this unwritten law. Now that the Hojo family are outcasts, not even the Sonozaki family can overturn the situation. So even if it's an issue of Hinamizawa, we can't do anything about it as Hinamizawa residents? Unfortunately, that's probably so, yeah. If there's someone who can help Satoko, that person must be someone who has nothing to do with the village. But there's no one like that here. Are you saying someone from the outside has to come help her? Like Richon says, would a knight in shining armor from the outside world ever come here? Would that person bring in a new wind into this village that has been filled with stale air for hundreds of years? No way. That's just wishful thinking. Time will solve the problem someday. Until then, I have to be their ally. I can't think of anything else I can do for them. As Rika-chan and I crunched on our rock candy, we can only pray that people will forgive Satoko and her family sooner rather than later. Rika-chan gently broke the heavy silence. I know. I know someone who has absolutely nothing to do with the village will come here from the outside. That's right. The dam conflict is over, so it'd be great if more people moved into those lots that are for sale. Wouldn't it be fun if a family with a kid our age moved in? He'll come, I know, and we'll break this evil practice alongside him. That'll be the first key to one of the 3 locks that have us trapped in the past. What's this? Are you talking about a novel or something? Rika-chan says some odd things sometimes. When she talks that way, she seems so mature. I even start to doubt she's really younger than I am. The unreasonable antagonism towards the Hojo family. Will there really be someone from the outside who'll shatter our old traditions? Alright. Let's go back to that page 2. At the quarry and murder. I think this sounds like it could be both past or future. So it's like, I guess I gotta do it. Sure. Serious step to the Fruit Days. That's part 4. Or year 4, I should say. His decision. Discontinuation of her dissection. Jeez. Red capsule. 3rd year's curse. Not there yet. Research. Level 5 stage patient. Live specimen is required. Tragedy is required. The death of him and her hospitalization, so we're not there yet. 3rd sacrifice. Rika's father being marked as an opportunist is required. Her mother's suspicion is required. Okay, that's a while still as well. Alright, let's go ahead and do the quarry. When researching Hinamizawa syndrome, there is something very important that needs to be discussed first. If something happens to the Queen Carrier, the village will collapse. In his article, my grandfather called it the most dangerous situation. According to my grandfather, if the Queen Carrier dies, all the infected persons will go terminal within 48 hours. This may sound unbelievable at first, but research on the collapse of past local religions and group suicides around the world should indicate that there's some truth to it. Among all the mysterious incidents around the world, there are some that were caused by parasites controlling entire communities, very similar to Hinamizawa syndrome. Grandfather picked a few cases that are very similar to the syndrome and investigated them. As a result, he confirmed multiple cases of entire communities losing their minds after the death of a religious leader or founder, and finally annihilating themselves. He stated that, on average, it happened within 48 hours. It's clear that infected people are affected by the queen carrier, and the condition of the queen carrier is, in fact, affecting the entire village. Our statistics already prove that on weeks Rika felt sick and visited the clinic, we saw an exceptionally high number of visitors. Rika being sick with a simple cold had a massive impact. If something particularly bad happened to her, we'd be facing a serious situation within 48 hours. That's why the Area Institute has to protect Rika Furude, the Queen Carrier. It's the most important mission of the Human Syndrome research project. She's already agreed to help us in our research, but we have to be very careful not to put her in any danger. Also, we have to protect her from anyone who would try to harm her. Her life is equal to the lives of 2,000 villagers, but what if something happens to her by accident? The Area Institute must prepare for that situation. That's why I worked on the draft of an emergency manual when the Area Institute was first established. It's a precaution in case the Queen Carrier dies, or if infected people show acute symptoms due to the death of the Queen Carrier. This is an emergency protocol which must be followed within 48 hours of the mass occurrence of the acute symptoms. The final measure is to prevent the damage from spreading to nearby areas. The plan uses gas, making it look like a natural disaster. My client, the Alphabet Project, took the responsibility of working out the details of the plan. They're used to dealing with things like nuclear and biological weapons, so they ended up being such a big help. There's no way I could have come up with a plan on my own to execute 2,000 villagers. Through a dummy company, the Ground Self-Defense Force has secured a closed quarry in the Yaguichi region upstream of Hinamizawa. It's to be the secret storage base for the equipment we'd use in that operation. Oh. Equipment that sprays deadly gas that kills people as if they were falling asleep is stored here. In the case of an emergency, a special unit of the Ground Self-Defense Force is to use this equipment to destroy the village. However, preparing for the execution of the villagers itself is politically dangerous. So, if I'm going to insist on them getting the equipment ready, I have to make them understand how dangerous Hinamizawa syndrome is, and also how urgent the need is to have a contingency plan. I have to prove the need for the plan by showing them enough data. So the files my grandfather kept intact come in quite handy. When the clients read my grandfather's article about the syndrome, they were surprised to see how catastrophic things could be in the worst-case scenario. In other words, if something happens to this girl, the Queen Carrier, all 2,000 of the villagers will become deranged? Is that what you're saying? Yes. There have been several cases similar to Hinamizawa syndrome where group suicides took place. In the case of the syndrome, we can easily expect extreme defensive behavior which results from deep paranoia. The result may affect all 2,000 plus carriers. From there on, we may face abnormal situations involving lawless violence and bizarre religious despondence. We must be ready to face such a situation by having a contingency plan. Otherwise, we'll draw attention from the rest of the world. We have to remember that we only have 48 hours to respond once it happens. Are you saying that if it happens, there's nothing anyone can do? Can't you treat everyone within 48 hours? That'll be impossible. We don't even have a cure. And the research center isn't capable of taking in all the villagers. How frightening to realize such a disease actually exists. The world is full of mysteries. Constant vigilance against worst-case scenarios support our national defense, and is one of the ideas behind the Alphabet Project. Besides, our goal is not to use the plan, but it's vital to be prepared. Indeed, precisely as you say, prepare for the worst, pray for the best. I'd still like to look into strengthening the rules of provable authority behind applying the plan, but I understand the necessity to prepare a response for a worst-case scenario. Let's have the Urban Suppression Research Team run a simulation of the Hinamizawa suppression operation in the region. I think we should get it going as soon as possible. It's possible that the Queen Carrier may be hit by a car and be killed at any moment. Thank you, Major Takano. We have further questions, so you can sit down. Thanks to a push from one of my backers, things were decided without too much of a problem. It took me almost a day to explain it to them, but it only took a short time to come to a decision. Nobody criticized, ridiculed, or tried to reject my grandfather's articles out of hand. In the files they're all reading today are the very same shameful articles those haughty authorities left their footprints on as they trampled them and my grandfather's heart. But they aren't ridiculing the articles. They're reading what was once rejected. It's nothing big at a glance, but in this moment, my grandfather's research is being recognized for the first time. My heart is filled with satisfaction to see people discussing amongst each other, while pointing to my grandfather's files and raising them as proof. I've worked so hard for this day. Grandpa in heaven, can you see this? Alright, so this is also a prequel, sort of. Alright, where are we going to now? Over here, the murder. We've got 2 apologies. We should be fine. Yep. Early summer, 1979 AD. Ooh, this is fancy. Oof, 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 oof. Shit. Damn it. Shit. Manager? Manager, come on, say something. Manager. You idiot. He's dead already. Clang. A loud noise snapped everyone out of it. Someone dropped the shovel he was holding. The shovel was smeared with reddish-black blood. No, not just the shovel. All 6 construction workers' clothes were blood-soaked too. One of them cried out to the silent dead body of the manager, which was drenched in blood. Wow, I'm surprised it was actually construction workers that did it. Manager! Manager! Oh! Shut up! He's already dead. It was self-defense, right? Self-defense. The fight had started after the manager yelled at them for drinking beer inside the office. There were no drinking and no smoking signs everywhere. The manager harshly scolded at anyone who broke that rule. So it was the 6 workers' fault for disobeying. Wow. But they drank because they were stressed out by the anti-dam protesters. That's why they said things to provoke the manager. They told him to step out, and the others went along. The construction workers toiled hard and long hours. That's why they instigated the fight with the manager, to release their stress. They had expected to just curse at each other, or to end up in a wrestling match. But things escalated. Or to put it more accurately, the manager exploded all of a sudden. The manager had to deal with the residents' protests as well. So he was under just as much pressure, or maybe even more. But how he changed was not normal. The manager was calm at first, but he gradually became more aggressive. And it was like he transformed into someone completely different. No, it was like he was possessed by something evil. The men who instigated the fight sobered up when they saw his behavior. Then, the manager picked up a shovel that was nearby and tried to smash his opponent's head in with it. He managed to avoid the hit, but if he didn't, his head would have surely been split open. Ooh, okay. The manager kept pounding on him with the shovel, even as he frantically tried to avoid the hits. By this time, the workers had realized this was beyond a simple fight, so they tried to hold the manager down. But the manager turned on them with the shovel too. One of the men tried to protect himself by crossing his arms above his head, but there was no way that could have blocked a shovel swung with such force. Blood spurted out, and the man groaned in pain. By this time, the 6 men had realized the manager was not his usual self. This manager would try to bash in their brains without hesitation. Since their opponent was using a shovel as his weapon, they had to find some kind of weapon too. One of them grabbed a huge hammer. Then the others realized they needed to find something as well. To restrain the manager in that condition, it was better to arm themselves. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Wah. It didn't take that long for the madness to infect the 6 workers. It was only a matter of time before they went from restraining him to lynching him. By the time they realized what had happened, the manager was already a lump of meat. His face was swollen, shreds of skin had been torn off, and his muscles and skull were visible too. Obviously, he was quite dead. Fuck! He almost killed us, remember? If he hadn't attacked us, we wouldn't have fought him. Right? The leader of the 6, the one who instigated the fight, tried to bring the rest to his side, but nobody replied. And so the leader became frustrated. He was the one who started the fight. The rest simply joined in. He was the main perpetrator. Maybe that was why he was feeling so exasperated. He sensed that he was the one at fault. Don't just stand there like a limp noodle. It's too late. We killed him, and there's nothing we can do about it. We're all murderers now. Fuck up. You ain't thinking about turning yourself in and doing time, are you? Fuck you. I can't go to the slammer at my age. We're hiding it. We're hiding this corpse and pretending nothing happened. Some of them knew he was on probation for an assault incident once before. So if he got into trouble with the law again, the punishment would be more severe than they could imagine. That was why he was trying desperately to find a way out. If he was alone with the manager's body, then he wouldn't have behaved this way. All he would have to do was hide the manager's body and pretend nothing happened. But there were 6 of them, including him. They were partners in crime and witnesses too. If even one of them turned himself in out of guilt, he'd be in big trouble. But even if we hide the body, they'll find out sooner or later. Instead, we should plead justifiable self-defense, and they might end up pardoning us. Don't be so stupid. Look what we've done. Look at his face. Who would think this is the result of self-defense? His parents wouldn't even be able to identify him in this condition, you idiot. But they did. Even if we hide it, everyone's going to find out tomorrow morning when the manager doesn't show. It's hopeless. What's hopeless is your damn brain, you shithead. He slapped the other man in the face. The leader had such an evil look in his eyes. Listen well, dipshits. We're all murderers, okay? Keep griping now, and we'll all get slammed with 5 or 6 years. Just one of you here try and blab. We'll all be locked up. Don't underestimate the pen. If you're prepared to be caught anyway, then run like your life depends on it. You can resign yourself to it later when it's time to pay the piper. His visage turned more and more demonic. It was the same expression the manager had just a few minutes before. Was he possessed by the same thing that possessed the manager? The 5 men started to think that way. Now that they considered it, all the villagers in the anti-dam protest had the same expression on their faces too. The real name of Hinamiya was Onigufuchi Village. People said that wicked demons lived there, and sometimes they possessed people. The men couldn't help but to recall that exaggerated story often told by the demonstrators. The manager swung the shovel after his expression changed to that demonic one. There was no guarantee this man wouldn't do the same. In fact, he was still squeezing the hammer in his hand, glaring at everyone and threatening. Excuse me a moment, I must remove the cat. Right, I'm back. If someone suggested surrendering, he'd probably smash their head in with it. I know. To make sure nobody betrays the rest, I have an idea. It'll make it easier to hide the body, too. What is it? We're gonna cut up the body into 6 pieces. What? They all wanted to object to the idea. Killing him was a serious crime itself. Dismembering the body would be too much. But if anyone objected, he'd be killed on the spot. So no one said anything. We'll all cut him up together. Remember what the manager used to say? Teamwork. We're all in this together. We'll each take a body part and hide it responsibly. What do you think, huh? This way, we're all equally guilty, right? I won't let anyone give themselves up. Oh. The 5 men were all taken in by his ghastly face, and they could even feel the fear of the Onigufuchi demons creep up their backs. Well, that's the first year's curse, almost. But we don't know where what's it called? What happens to the sacrifice yet, though we all know who it is. Oh. Why is it a book all of a sudden? That's not it. Third year's curse. Fourth, death. Oh, this is page 1. Dose experiment. Satoko's test, not done yet. Erie's decision, not yet. Discontinuation of her dissection. Third year. L5 stage patient is required, not yet. Wait. Dissection. First sacrifice. Live specimen for research is required in the tragedy. Okay, this is now unlocked. Obviously, that's not there yet. Third sacrifice. Rika's father, Rika's mother. Fourth sacrifice. Distrust of the queen. Accident. Mysterious death. Aries background, I can do that. Not that yet. Koizumi sensei. Koizumi sensei. I think that's a separate one. Let's see. We had Jiro's high fever. Slight fever. Completion of the C117. Old guy. Death of the dam construction. Yes. So you got that now. Roll of a 1. Bottle of wine for a toast. Jiro's promise. Draft of an emergency manual. I don't know if we've got the wine toast yet, but otherwise we've got the rest. We got this. Don't have that yet. What is this? Footsteps in the 4th year. Not yet. What is this? Shopping trip? Done. Shinto priest contacting the Erie Institute. I think I have that. Rock candy and details tests? Not yet. Definitely not this yet. Same with this. This one. Sachi's awareness of his sins? Not yet. Obviously not yet. What's this? Red capsule. This is all that stuff. The revenge of Mio Takano is required. What? Rossi Urchin. Big Teddy Bear. Himatsubushi. What is that one? Oh, that's chapter 4. Onikakushi. We don't have that set up yet. So, alright, let's go and do Erie's recollection. I've wanted to become a doctor ever since I was little. Doctors make a lot of money. People look up to doctors. I think those are the kind of reasons I had. So when I played with my friends, I always acted like a doctor. I cleaned their wounds and applied ice packs when my friends sprained their ankles, using what I learned from household medical books. Everyone, including me, believed that I'd be a doctor one day. My family was poor, so they praised me for that goal. They told me that I needed to study a lot to become a doctor, so they borrowed some pseudo medical books from the local library for me. Oh no. The rental fees weren't cheap. So I would speed read one book in a day and the next day. My parents would go back to the store to exchange it for a different book, saying they accidentally borrowed a book they already borrowed before. By doing so, my parents borrowed 2 books for the price of 1. Good parents. Of course, now I know those books were rather useless, but they were highly motivational just the same. That's cute. My neighbors called me Dr. Kyosuke-kun. I was always picked for class health officer at school. Even my teachers helped me with the classes I needed to take to become a doctor. Of course, in reality, becoming a doctor isn't as easy as it might seem. I had to study diligently, and the path was most definitely rough. To become a doctor, one must attend college. Since my family was poor, I was told I wasn't allowed to go to an expensive private school, so I had to be admitted to a national public university. My grades weren't bad, but the admission rate to national public universities is very marginal. Especially since I wanted to go to a medical school, my chances were even smaller. I studied like crazy. My only driving force was my childhood dream of becoming a doctor. The dream of becoming a doctor and to be looked up to by everyone kept me going. And I was admitted. I wasn't at the top of the list, but I made it in. I was finally at the starting point of making my childhood dream come true. Just like Mio. My parents were thrilled. Neither my father nor mother went to college, so they were proud of their son getting into a public medical school. They invited our relatives over to celebrate. Although it was a public university, tuition wasn't cheap, but they still had an extravagant celebration anyway. My father didn't express his emotions much. He always kept a straight face. He rarely voiced his opinion or took initiative on anything. My mother took care of everything, and he showed up last and left without saying a word. He was the typical stern and silent Japanese father of the time. That's why I was surprised to see him shedding tears of joy, and I cried along with him. He went around to all my relatives while repeatedly slapping my back, saying how proud and lucky he was to have a son like me. He bragged about my achievements to all who would hear them. The celebration became a farewell party as I was about to leave for Tokyo. My father yelled "Banzai" repeatedly at the station as the train pulled away. I was a little embarrassed, but when I could no longer see my father, I could clearly recall the tears pouring down. The days of hellish studying and exams began after that. Some days I was tempted to just give up and submit myself to the lavish lifestyle of the city. But the letters from my family always encouraged me and gave me the strength to go on. My dream then was to open up my own clinic in my hometown so I could contribute to the region. I never even dreamed of getting involved with brains. One day, I noticed a difference in a letter from my family. The letter said the usual things about how it was at home and asked how I was doing. But the postscript was what caught my attention. Your father has become really violent lately. Sometimes he turns the house upside down. I don't know what to do. I just couldn't picture him acting viciously. I was extremely surprised. Did something happen? But in the postscript, my mother said that there was nothing she could think of. My mother and father had been together for a long time. They'd been together since well before I was born. So she noticed things that I couldn't. She couldn't even think of a reason why my father had become so violent. What happened? They got along so well. They were such a lovely couple. When I caused a problem for my mother, when I was little, my father only bonked my head with his knuckle. Why was he acting this way towards my mother? Maybe there was some kind of misunderstanding between them. I was going home for the new year. Maybe I could have a good talk with him then. But the situation was a lot more serious than I thought. On one cold winter day, I found my apartment door unlocked. I thought someone had broken in, but I found my mother in my apartment with their luggage. That's right. My mother could no longer take my father's fury and came to stay with me. This was back when people still believed in the proverb, a woman has no place to settle down all her life. She couldn't go back to her own family because they lived in the same region as my father, so she came all the way to Tokyo. I heard about my father's violence from my mother's own lips. She cried, saying she had no idea why such a quiet man changed like that. She said she wasn't ever going back to him. I didn't know what to do. I asked her if she could talk to him one more time, but the bruises on her body told me it was no use. To remember what happened afterwards is too much, so I'll be brief. After my mother left, my father thought she was having an affair and went over to the neighbor's house with a wooden sword. He was arrested. He was released immediately, but he assumed someone in the neighborhood was hiding her, so he did the same thing repeatedly. He eventually reached the point of getting into fights with anyone he saw. At the end, he picked a fight with some young punks and ended up being beaten to death. Jeez. My relatives gave my father a decent funeral, but my mother didn't attend. It's no use beating a dead horse, so nobody said anything negative about my father, but everyone was simply puzzled as to why he changed so much. What I heard from my relatives about my father's final days was a lot stranger than what I heard from my mother. My mother only told me about his sudden rage and violence, but my relatives told me he also laughed and grew sad. Apparently, he displayed several sudden fluctuations of emotion, especially so in his last years. They also told me that he started to complain about headaches after an accident he had. My father was a construction worker. He had hit his head hard on a construction board during an accident at work. He regained his consciousness quickly and seemed fine. But since the accident, he started to have headaches and behave abnormally. I sensed the connection between the accident and my father's changes, so I talked to my professor after I went back to Tokyo. I can't say for certain, but it sounds like it's possible your father suffered some kind of brain damage. There's a chance that blow to his head caused an organic mental disorder. The symptoms your father showed in his final years are similar to the delirium and mental fluctuations we've often seen in similar patients. Human behavior is created by the brain, and if the brain is damaged, it can cause erratic behavior. In other words, my father wasn't crazy. He was suffering from a disorder. If you can perform an autopsy on him, you should check his brain carefully. Maybe you'll find something like a tumor there. My father had already been cremated, so there was no way of knowing. But hearing about his behavior, I knew for sure. That was the only way to explain such a quiet and gentle man would change. I tried to explain all this to my relatives to regain my father's honor, but hardly anyone understood. If his brain was damaged, he would have been dead. But he was alive and well. So the accident didn't damage his brain. It wasn't his brain that caused him to change, it was his mind. They simply brushed it off like that. This is the perception most people have about the brain. They don't realize the mind and the brain are connected. Most of the relatives didn't believe me. But there was one person who I really wanted to anyway. That was my mother. As she got older, she grew senile, and she exaggerated the abuse she had to endure. All she did was criticize my father, and every time she ended up crying, lamenting that she married him. They were a lovely couple. We were a great family. That's why I wanted to convey to her that she was misunderstanding the situation with my father. My father's behavior was caused by his brain damage. What he did to her was very sad, but he didn't want to be that way. I told her that he wasn't at fault. But my mother didn't understand. Before she took her last breaths, I begged her to forgive my father. But her final words were, "Please don't bury me next to that man." My father wasn't at fault. He was simply the victim of a brain disorder. You don't complain to a person who's coughing because he has a cold, because coughing is just a symptom, and he should be sympathized with. In my father's case, the symptoms weren't as obvious as a cough. They took the form of changes in personality, which are much harder to recognize. If I had studied the brain more, I could have explained it better to my mother so that she could have understood him. Then they could have been a nice couple again in heaven. When I realized that, I cried. And I also realized that there are plenty of people like my father in this world, who are suffering from a disorder, yet they are misunderstood and despised for it. And then I found out. About a miraculous cure for such disorders called a lobotomy. Ever since that day, I spent my days learning about the brain, so I could help people who are suffering from mental illnesses. That reminds me, I need to add that game, the corporation, I think it's called Lobotomy Corporation, to my Steam wish list real quick. Lobotomy Corporation. My father is gone, but if he was still alive, I could cure him myself. There it is. Monster Management Simulation. Add to your wish list. $25. Oof. Alright, let's get back. Thank you for waiting. So he and my mother could reconcile. That's the main reason why I'm here. So that explains why he's so into lobotomies, is because of his tragic past, just like why Mio is so focused on becoming a god. But the real thing is Mio kept quiet about her obsession, while he didn't. Don't have that yet. Definitely don't have that. We do have this, but don't have that. Don't have that. Pretty sure I don't have any of these. That's part 3, part 3, part 4. Don't have that. That. Don't have that, of course. That. The first sacrifice. A live specimen is required. I'm pretty sure I have that requirement. And else we have death of the construction manager, her hospitalization. Not yet. Yeah, these are all sacrifices. So I do have the unlock for that. Accident at the Shirakawa Park. Yeah, don't have any of those. Routine inspection, I don't have that, don't have that. I should do that. Death of the construction manager. I don't know what to say. I want to say something, but I can't think of the right words. I can only sigh. Ah, Oishi-san. I've been looking for you. The section manager asked me about the wanted poster. Be quiet. This is a place of rest. As Kumagai barged into the room, the old coroner quickly snapped back at him. Sorry. The section manager asked me about the wanted poster for the suspect. Ah. Can you talk to Komiyama-kun about that? I need to speak to the coroner here. Could you tell him I'll be right over? Okay. Kumagai ran out of the autopsy room with the same haste he entered in. Lively, isn't he? The old man would have slapped him for making such a fuss. You probably should go back too. The air in here isn't for people who aren't used to it. You're right. If I slack off too long, I might get slapped as well. Here in Shishibone, all the hoodlums cross the street when you pass through. Yet he's the only one, past or future, who's ever punched you for splitting your sumo roll. He really was a merciless man. I think he punched me more than my real father. Doesn't matter if he was your real one or not. If you looked up to him in the same way, then he really was a father to you. My real father passed away in Nagoya. He was unlucky. If he wasn't given the order to move to a plant in Nagoya, he wouldn't have died in an air raid. If he could rode it out in another half a year or so, then the war would have been over. I was sad, of course, but I was grown up enough by then that I didn't cry into the ground like my mother did. But people feel sadness in different ways. For some people, it comes all at once as an overwhelming wave, but others feel sadness gradually, over a long period of time. I think I was the latter. When he was alive, I only thought of him as annoying. In my mind, I even cursed him with questions about why he avoided the draft. Oh, and I thought my feelings towards him would always be the same. Then the war ended, as I saw families and friends being reunited with joy as they came home from the front. It finally happened. I grieved for my father's death. Japan was filled with people who were sad and full of despair. I knew I wasn't the only one whose life ended up that way. But I remember I was very, very heartbroken. After the war, the nation completely changed. As a policeman, the environment I worked in went through sudden changes too. Wait, if he was a policeman at the time, wouldn't he have been drafted too? In order to forget my sorrow, the only thing I could do was devote myself to my work. At the time, I was in charge of busting people for buying rice illegally. I conducted spot checks on travelers at major train stations. And boy, did I find a lot of them. There was a fairly big black market in Gogura, and a lot of people came from as far as Osaka to buy it. After the war, Japan faced a chronic shortage in food supply. To those ends, the nation instituted a food rationing program by signing the Food Control Act. But the rations the government provided weren't even close to being enough to feed families. Therefore, people had no choice other than buying food and supplies on the black market. The government hardly had enough food for rations, but there were somehow plenty on the black market. The dealers there sold it at outrageous prices, and some of them became quite wealthy. The Sonozaki family made their money through that black market, but that's another story. The government didn't bother arresting these dealers. For, with their money, they were able to buy off the top members of the police department. Instead, they decided to go after the people buying the goods, and even confiscated the rice they bought by selling everything they owned. Jeez. Yeah, I remember that. Wasn't there a prosecutor who starved himself to death? Yeah, there was. A prosecutor who vowed not to eat illegal rice starved to death. Was it in 1947? 47. Okay. That was horrible. He, a public prosecutor, proved it himself that people couldn't survive by adhering to the law. That prosecutor had grown tired of the government charging people with doing whatever they could to survive, and he proclaimed that he was never going to buy black market rice again. In 1947, he starved to death when he was only in his mid-30s. The law prohibited people from buying black market rice, but that was the only way to survive. In that case, was the Food Control Act a bad law itself? The death of the prosecutor was seen as a desperate message to the government about the unjustness of that law. We rounded up people with bags of rice and lined them up at the temporary inspection point next to the station. It was like a military tribunal. We inspected their bags and confiscated everything that they bought at the black market. The women all cried. They sold everything they owned to buy the rice. They pleaded that if we confiscated the rice, how would they feed their starving children? Doesn't make sense, huh? Yet they forbade you from going after the sellers, so it was absolutely unfair from the view of the people. Everyone was on edge. If they heard a police inspection was set up at the next station, they'd jump off the train and run. We were aware of these people, so we set up several officers near jump-off spots in order to capture them. Jesus. I remember chasing after women carrying several kilos of rice on them. That was when I first met the old man. Man, I was surprised. Remember my father? He looked exactly like him. I really thought that maybe my father had miraculously survived the air raid in Nagia. I was chasing a man who was running away from the inspection point. There was no way for him to run with a heavy bag of rice on him. So either he'd get arrested with the illegal rice, or escape by ditching the rice that he bought by selling all his belongings. In other words, if a person is being chased by the police, that person can't provide his family any rice to eat. Of course, I felt guilty about that. I knew people had to buy the rice to survive. So we had a tacit agreement to let those who ditched the rice and ran get away. So I always thought the same thing as I chased them. Please throw it away. I didn't want to catch him, because I didn't want to hear him crying and pleading in distress. It was then that the old man showed up. He looked exactly like my dead father. I was dumbfounded. Then, all of a sudden, he punched me in the head. If a father disciplines you as a child, you lower your head in an apology. I was so happy to see my father alive that I couldn't hold my joy in. The old man said, "Let him go." When I heard his voice, I realized he wasn't my father, so I thought I'd arrest him for assaulting a policeman. But a young man like me, who'd barely grown any hairs yet, was no match for an older man used to fighting. Wait, no hairs yet? That means he must be like 12 or 13 at the time. What the hell? As a policeman? Yeah, he sure taught me a lesson. He gave me a good scolding in the middle of the street after I was all beat up. Who would even listen to him, right? But something struck me then. I kept seeing my father in him. All I could do was listen. Yeah, he was a ruffian, but he showed his guts like a real man. That's what made him such a great guy. You don't see men like him nowadays. He was a true example of a man from the good old times. Despite my age, I still needed a father. I needed someone to look up to, and to show me what makes a man a man. When I think about it, I really did have two fathers. The old man was a father, a brother, and my best friend. But now, here he lies with his head, body, arms, and legs all dismembered, and his right arm hasn't been found. So let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts? Yeah. Because of your head, your arms and legs come up to 5. Right? Yeah, and then your body is 6. Okay. He taught me how to be a man, how to enjoy alcohol, how to play mahjong. And with that right arm, he gave me a good beating when I did something wrong. But that right arm is still missing. Do you have any suspects? Yeah, of course. I swear I'll find the old man's right arm and pay them back for what they've done to him. They're running Hinamizawa from the shadows and inciting this collective crime they call the dam protests, the Sonozaki family. I declare war within myself. I already know who my enemy is. Ah, there's the declaration of war. Alright, let's take a look at our stuff again. Because I think we're ready to do the first year's curse now, at this point. But I'm not too sure. Right here, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're ready to do this. Satsuko hasn't been hospitalized yet, so. Distrust, not yet. Satsuki and Satsuki. Third year in his declaration of war. Yep. So this is right around the second year. Oh, this is the third year. Death of Satsuki's aunt. Routine inspection. Haven't gotten that yet. Death of Koizumi Sensei, not yet. The Rika's fever is not yet. Roll of a 1. I think we're still missing this wine toast, but I might be mistaken. Joe's promise and emergency manual. Shopping trip and contacting the institution. I think I could start this, but I'm not sure. Rock candy and her results, not yet. Conflict and self. Maybe I should start this. Yeah. The Hojo family is well known for going against the whole village during the dam conflict. Both the husband and the wife were rather aggressive, and they fought a fierce battle, especially against the Sonozaki family. Although the whole village treated them coldly, the husband and wife didn't really care and kept on fighting. In a way, they were extremely strong-willed people. I'm sure their children had to go through a lot because of them, though. Satsuko-chan and Satsuki-kun were treated coldly by the villagers as well. In addition to that, Satsuko-chan and her stepfather didn't get along, So their stress levels must have reached their limit. Ah, here's the stress. Because I'm the director of the local clinic, a rather respected member of society, people usually tell me a lot of things. So I was aware of the treatment they were receiving even before I met them. I met Sachi-kun first. Sachi-kun came to the clinic because he felt ill from too much stress. He must have thought he had a cold. When I examined him, he even told me that. But hearing his repeated sighs and by seeing the exhausted look in his eyes, I knew right away it wasn't just a simple cold. Medication would heal his symptoms, but that'd only be a temporary measure. The only way to truly cure him would be to change his living environment. But that was easier said than done. He was surrounded by tangled and complicated relationships with the village and his family, so just resting for a few days and taking some medication wouldn't do. Time was the only thing that could ease off the cold treatment from the villagers, but we were talking a very, very long time. That's why I felt I had to be their first ally in this village, so I could rescue them. I couldn't do anything about his stressful environment, but I could try to diminish the anxiety. So I thought the best way was to teach him how to vent his stress. And playing sports is the best way to do that. So I asked him to join the junior baseball team that I coach. As a researcher, I devote most of my time to Hinamizawa syndrome, but I too need to do something to relax. Something else to relax. I used to play baseball, so I decided to coach the local kids team. After a while, the children of Hinamizawa started their own baseball team, and somehow I became their coach. Doctors can't provide health just by giving medication. You need a sound mind and a sound body. I believe health can be maintained through sports as well. But our team needed more people. So I thought of asking Sachi-kun to join. Being a bookworm, Sachi-kun wasn't interested in playing sports. He wasn't sure how joining the baseball team would help in this situation. I didn't need to go on and on about athletic medicine to explain why sports help people become healthy. I just wanted him to experience it himself, to realize how great it feels to play sports. I think he realized it gradually. He was reluctant until the very end, but he attended all of the team activities and games. As I saw Sachi-kun slowly regain his liveliness, I realized my plan worked. However, if Sachi-kun was under that much stress, then Satoko-chan, who lived in the same family climate, must have felt the same way. Unfortunately, I didn't think of her back then. So when Satoko-chan was carried into my clinic as a patient, I regretted doing nothing about her, even while knowing the situation. As Sachi-kun recovered under my guidance, Satoko-chan was left alone in a stressful environment. Also around that time, there was an incident bad enough to make Satoko-chan collapse. Hospitalization. Okay. That was, of course, her parents' deaths. The day of the Watanagashi festival was a very uncomfortable time for the Hojo family, because although it was a village festival, it was also a day to celebrate victory over the dam construction project. It's understandable that they would plan a family trip around that time so they could leave the village. Satoko-chan's parents fell off a cliff at the park they were visiting. Oh, the park, okay. It happened on such an unlucky day. Because it happened on the day of Watanagashi. People said it was the curse of Oyashiro-sama. And people labeled the Hojo family as one that was cursed by Oyashiro-sama. The parents were given the cold shoulder by everyone in the village. So with their parents gone, Sachi and Satoko should have been freed from that, but unfortunately, the accident happened on the day of Watanagashi. That's why the members of the Hojo family continued to be shunned. Satoko-chan was the only one who was at the site of the accident. Sachi-kun didn't go on the trip because he had an event with the baseball team. Therefore, the police mainly interrogated her. The detective, Oishi, suspected an act of organized crime by the village. So with Satoko as the only witness on site, he drilled her with questions. She was as stressed as Sachi-kun, perhaps even more, so of course she couldn't take it. During the interrogation, she began to wheeze and gasp for air. The anguished look I saw on Satoko-chan's face when she was carried into the clinic was very, very tragic. It broke my heart just to imagine what she had to go through. Coach, is Satoko okay? Yes, don't worry. She's a bit confused, but only temporarily, that's all. May I see her? She finally fell asleep, so I'd rather not wake her up just yet. Let's just let her rest for a while. Maybe it's a good idea to have her stay here for a few days, too. Don't worry. I'll take good care of her. Thank you. I know Sachi-kun is a great big brother who truly cares about his sister. He emphasizes deeply with her. In other words, Sachi-kun's worries and stress were reflecting Satsuko-chan herself. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but while Sachi-kun was, of course, sad about his parents' deaths, he may, at the same time, have been a little relieved that they were gone. His sister wouldn't have to be driven into a corner anymore. Unlike Sachi-kun, Satsuko-chan didn't have the social skills to get along with her stepfather. So putting her mother aside, I was certain that losing her father, the greatest cause of stress in her life, would bring great change to her home environment. But I couldn't believe what happened next. The two were sent to live in an even worse environment with their aunt and uncle. Although at that time, I was rather optimistic, thinking this new environment would be better for the siblings. So I'm pretty sure this is considered her hospitalization. So that unlocks a lot of stuff. Alright, let's take a look at that park stuff on page 1. Come on. Alright, page 1. Dose experiment. No. No. Red capsule, 3rd year. No. Research is going well. We don't have this. First sacrifice. Pretty sure we have this. Second. The death of him and hospitalization of her. Okay, so we have that. Right, because I just heard about the second death. And then this is that stuff. So no. So we have these two for sure. What's this? Don't have that. Wait. The truth about the park accident. Don't have that yet. Mysterious death. Sachi must not be allowed to visit his sister. His sense of responsibility as a big brother is required. I'm pretty sure I have both of those. Or are these? These are all the deaths as well. So that means I have the second, of course. And over here we have that one. Don't have that one. Don't have that still. Don't have that. What's this one? Part-time job. Don't have that yet for a while. Don't have that still for some reason. Shopping trip, and I'm pretty sure I have that. I think I should do that first year thing finally. And this is just all the endings. So let's do the first sacrifice. I was half asleep, so I didn't even hear the phone ringing nearby. After a while, I finally realized the phone was ringing, and a ringing phone means there's some kind of emergency. It's 2 in the morning. Who would even call me at this time of the night? I assume this is Mio? Oh, it's Irie. I'm sorry to bother you, Dr. Irie. It's Takano-san. She's never called me for a personal reason. At the Institute, she's ranked just below me, so she's basically responsible for running it. So for her to call me this late at night, it must be an emergency. Sorry it took me so long. Is it true that we have another terminal patient? Yes. I was hoping to find a living specimen, so this is perfect. I initially thought that she'd abducted someone. The man had already been moved to the research area in the clinic's basement. Having been tied down to the examination table, he's struggling against his restraints, but more as though he's deranged than actually resisting. I can't even understand what he's saying. He sounds angry, sorrowful, and like a child throwing a tantrum all at once. It's obvious that he's not in the right state of mind. Anyway, let's put him under anesthesia. He might kill himself otherwise. I wanted to observe him a little longer, but I guess I have no other choice. One of the staff with a white gown got the anesthesia ready. Even a normal person would struggle to escape a restraining table in this suspicious room. But this man's behavior is at an abnormal level. I'm sure Okunogi-san and his friends from the Mountain Dogs are the ones who captured him. Capturing a man in this state of mind couldn't have been an easy task. According to Takano, she ran into this patient on her way home from the clinic by accident. She brought him back here, tested him, and the result came back positive. Of course, I have no intention of just believing what she's telling me. But there's no question that this man is at the terminal stage, and a live specimen is exactly what we need to research the syndrome. Who is this man, anyway? He had something wrapped in newspaper. What do you think was in it? A right arm. Ugh, what is this? There's something wrapped in a bloody newspaper on a tray nearby. Looking at the blood-drenched paper, I can only imagine there's something gruesome inside of it. Yet Takano-san looked like she wanted to surprise me with something interesting. Oh god, this is awful. It's a bloody right arm. The man on the table still has his. This right arm doesn't belong to him. So who does it belong to? I'm used to looking at things like this as a doctor. But the horrible cross-section makes me want to look away. It wasn't done according to a medically acceptable method, that's for sure. It was obviously done out of cruelty. Judging by the situation, we can assume this man cut off this arm. So he's the culprit behind the body dumping that's been occurring in the neighborhood? At that point, there was no way of knowing who the right arm belonged to. But the next morning, the dismemberment murder of the dam construction site director was reported, and they mentioned that his right arm was still missing, so he learned who the right arm belonged to. I feel like they should have released the arm so that it was like, oh, here it is. This man has a criminal record and he's on probation, yet he committed another crime. I bet he dismantled the body in order to hide it. I'm sure it depends on the circumstances, but he'll get more than just a few years in prison. So you won't hesitate to dissect a scumbag like him, right? Who knows? Maybe he was a scumbag before and became violent due to the syndrome? I think they meant wasn't. I'm going to check the Japanese because this is a bit weird. Just a second. Naga Sarani One. Sarani Sono Ue. Too much kanji that I can't read. Or maybe he had gone straight, but became violent again due to the syndrome. Okay, so he fixed it. The former is one thing, but if it's the latter case, it's not his fault. That's why Hinamizawa syndrome is so terrifying. We can't tell if the syndrome is the cause of the crime, or if it's simply a problem of human nature. But what causes a defect of human nature in the first place? That was precisely Erie's area of research. Hate the crime, not the criminal. Can criminals only be corrected by punishing them with imprisonment? If a person commits a crime because of a mental disorder, but then gets a treatment, he's corrected. In other words, there's no crimes in this world, only patients awaiting treatment without anyone else being able to understand them. I am God. In medieval times, patients with mental disorders were said to be possessed by demons, and they were either confined or killed. Centuries after, they were finally acknowledged as mentally ill people who needed treatment. Perception can change with time. Even if they're called criminals now, maybe after several centuries, those criminals will be acknowledged as patients who are entitled to appropriate treatment. Appropriate treatment that we don't have at this time, but now we're going to look through our rose-tinted glasses and be like, oh, we could have treated them 300 years later. Explaining crimes through illness instead of malice. That's my life's work. Hinamizawa syndrome is a strange disease that can support my theory. Solving its mysteries is extremely important to me. To solve those mysteries, I need a medical sacrifice. It's an extremely sinful thing to do, but there's no way to unravel this without it. The Erie Institute was authorized to take such drastic measures if necessary. That's why I was asked about it so many times when I accepted the position of director. And finally, the opportunity is here. This will be the first step of our research on this strange disease. But even now, I'm a little hesitant. I've opened up human bodies in many surgeries. What I'll be doing on this man is something very similar. But there's also something that's very different. What I did before was part of treatment. I did it to save the patients' lives. I did it so the patients could have a better future. But what I'm trying to do here isn't treatment. He will die at the end of it. His death will be far from humane. I'm going to violate nature and force him to stay alive, while I open up his living brain. Director Irie, are you listening? Sorry. Could you repeat that? I believe it best that we submit the dissection proposal to Tokyo and request their assistance. He's not only alive, he's also in the terminal stage, so he's an extremely important specimen. We must conduct the dissection very carefully. That's true. You're right. Let's do as you say. I think we'll have a few days before the dissection, so I want to run some reaction tests once he's off the anesthetic. Do you think that's safe? Even if he's restrained, we don't know what will happen. We finally have the opportunity to test a live specimen. We can't only look into his brain. Takuma-san's unusual cheerfulness made me feel odd. Maybe her reaction is normal. Maybe I'm the one who's not reacting normally in this situation. I'm here only for the research, so I should be excited to have the opportunity to perform our first live dissection. But I'm still hesitant. How can I call myself a researcher? Researchers of the past were brave enough to cross the line. That's how they accomplished many things. I've seen many brains. I've operated on them. I've lost some patients too. But I never thought anything of it because I knew I did the right thing. Even when my hard work was denied afterwards, even though it's not the right thing, as we now know. If it pained me to think of that, then I just needed to advance the field of medicine to ensure their deaths weren't wasted. That's the true form of those advancing the field of medicine. Yeah, this is sort of true. Sacrifice for a lot more lives saved. Yet, why was my heart tormented so much just by changing the name from treatment to dissection? Does it mean I'm not man enough to emulate those great men of the past who opened the doors to new medicine? That I don't have the power to develop new advances myself? Yeah, that's true. Hey, what's the matter, Director? Are you feeling okay? Takuma was pretending to be concerned about me. But she knows. She knows I'm still hesitating. And she's telling me that I should be ashamed as a researcher for feeling that way. I shook my head to clear it of sleepiness. Remember, the resolve brought me here to this day. I already have blood on my hands. But if I stop now, their lives will be wasted. Those who shed their blood can only rest in peace once they've become the cornerstones of great research. I shook my head once more and reminded myself that I'm a researcher. No, I was just thinking. Takuma-san, please make some arrangement with Tokyo. And let me know when it's done. Okay, understood. This is really exciting. The least I can do is my best, so his life won't be wasted. If he bleeds, I can't waste even a drop of his blood. After scolding my staff for their indiscretion of discussing the dissection with such excitement, I returned to my office. So I want to read what that second sacrifice is, because they both fell, so take a look. The death of the construction site manager and her hospitalization. Maybe they're talking about her sacrifice. Because mother's suspicion. Yeah. L5 stage patient's dissection. Pretty sure this is fine to do. I'm going to do a save because I don't want to ruin any of this. Just connecting fragments some more, so I might as well just overwrite it. So let's go with research going well. Yep. Furude-san, thank you for waiting. We just finished the last test. She'll be back soon. I hope she's able to help. Satsuko? Of course. Rika-san will help the whole village. Oh, Furude-san, okay. I think we'll be able to come up with a treatment soon. We're still looking into the structure, but we're finding out how important Rika-san is to the villagers. People with more serious conditions can't stabilize themselves. But we found out if they get close to the queen carrier, they generate some kind of substance in their brain. This substance has a calming effect, and it seems to have the power to bring their symptoms down. If we can produce this substance, it'll end up making for a powerful treatment. I see. Rika has that kind of power. You shouldn't be surprised. People say that maidens of the Furude Shrine have the psychic power to calm both souls and demons, don't they? Even before we discovered it, it was already recorded in the history of the last few hundred years. That's true. I'm impressed with how wise people were back then. The tests are all done. Rika, good work. You must be getting tired. Why don't you take this and go get something to drink? They took a lot of my blood, so I need to replenish. Rika took the 100 yen coin that was offered to her and ran out into the hallway. You shouldn't be running if you just gave blood. Well, I suppose it was a small amount. I appreciate Rika-san's help. If she hadn't offered her assistance, our research wouldn't have progressed this far. Rika's very concerned about her friend with the syndrome. She said she wants to help because of her. Doctor, please take Rika's feelings into account. Of course. We're taking up her precious time every Sunday, so we'll make sure to get to the bottom of this. We may have to put her through some rather rough experiments, but I hope you'll understand. You shouldn't say that until you have to. We'll never harm her in any way, though. She's such an important person. She's the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, after all. I wonder how people back then found out about this syndrome, and how they knew that the Furude family were the descendants of the queen. I'm truly impressed. By the way, there's something I have to ask you. I would like to ask you for permission to collect her cerebrospinal fluid. There it is. Also, there's a chance that we'll have to drill a hole in their skull. Jesus Christ, guy. To examine the inside of her head. A hole in her skull? Of course, we'll take every precaution. Rika-san is the one and only queen carrier. We'll make sure that she's safe. Her safety is our priority. Of course, since Rika-chan is a girl, we won't shave her entire head. However, we'll have to ask her to stay at the clinic a little longer so we can keep our eyes on her. She can still receive visitors, of course. You're more than welcome to attend the examination. I'm sure she'll be more relaxed to have someone she knows nearby. Do you really need to perform this examination? Is it really safe? I can't absolutely guarantee her safety for either collecting cerebrospinal fluid or for drilling a hole in her skull. There's always the off chance something might go wrong. Also, Rika-san may suffer from some physical and emotional discomfort. Even if it's this important, we can't perform it without the parents' consent. Actually, I've already talked to Rika-chan about it. What did she say? She said that it's fine. I've explained to her the possibility of danger, but we still need your consent. Sometimes, Rika truly believes that she's the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama, so maybe she feels obligated to sacrifice herself for the villagers. What an impressive child. Could you please let me talk to my wife? She understands the situation, but I still need to explain it to her. Sure, of course. Please talk it over with her. So this examination is an extremely important step in the process of stamping out the syndrome, right? Yes. It'll solve the mysteries of Hinamizo syndrome for sure. At least, it'll be the first step. As I already explained, if something happens to the queen carrier, the whole community here may be in danger. In other words, it's possible the whole village could end up with terminal symptoms. That's right. According to the studies, within 48 hours of the death of the queen carrier, everyone with the disease will become dangerously sick. We must prevent that from happening no matter what. If something happens to Rika, the whole village will go insane. Yes, it's our job to prevent them. It might seem ironic that we have to put your daughter in danger, but this is the only way to stamp out the syndrome. Dr. Irie, I hope you'll succeed in that examination. As I said, there are no guarantees in medicine. Sure. Irie answered with a nod, interrupting Takano's vague response. I will succeed. I'll save Rika-san and the villagers, too. I promise. Okay. I'll talk to my wife. I'll let you know our decision. Yes. Thank you. Do we go to the talk or no? Oh, it's these two. After Rika and her father left, Takano started to laugh. What is it? What's so funny? Oh, nothing. I just thought it was amusing to get permission from both the patient and her parents beforehand. Rika-chan is going through something she doesn't have to. I thought I should ask a courtesy. I would have gotten consent from the man last year, had he been in a normal condition. Are you being tormented with guilt ever since you started your research here? What do you mean? This type of teasing was normal from Takano, but maybe she had gone a little too far. Irie made it clear how displeased he was to hear that. You can only research Hinamizo syndrome by using living beings. You feel guilty continuing your work because of that. Those guilty feelings are a necessity. Whether it's a murder or dissection, the fact that you're taking someone's life is the same. We have to accept that, and at the same time devote ourselves to our research. That's an extremely impressive theory you have there. Then, Dr. Irie, how many times have you gotten consent before you cut into people's brains? Not at all. Irie didn't think Takano knew about that. How many brains have you cut up without consent, using your selfish theory that people commit crimes due to mental disorders as your excuse? That's... Common sense changes with time. Back then, doctors didn't need to explain anything or get consent beforehand. So I don't think you have to be concerned about the past. It'd be a problem now, but it was okay back then. So that's fine. But you feel guilty, and that's why you want to get consent from Rikichan beforehand, and why you wanted to get it from him, right? That's not true. In the first place, the treatment and dissection are. Listen, boy. What you want is the stamp of forgiveness known as prior consent, right? What you want is some stamp of forgiveness, some deception to fill your heart, so you can atone for your past sins. If you regretted what you've done, then you'd never get involved with brains again. Yet you're dragging regrets behind as you continue to deal with brains, guilty all the while. If you truly acknowledged your actions as a sin, then you would have refused to accept the appointment as director. Isn't that right, boy? I don't need to listen to this. Excuse me. Jeez. You must listen. The field of medicine is constantly won in battles against that era's ethics and social values. When Dr. Takano discovered the existence of the syndrome, the people in power at the time just disregarded their own ignorance and scoffed at his foresight. But he didn't stop researching until he collapsed. He believed that someday he'd be acknowledged. Even if it was after he died, he still believed in it. He could do that only because of how strong his conviction was. If it wasn't for that, he would have given up. Strong will is what keeps the research going. Only the most determined can achieve a result. But you don't have that. You're a coward who still can't decide if he should be proud or ashamed of his achievements. How could you accept the position of director with such half-hearted determination? You knew from the beginning that this research couldn't be brought to fruition without adding further blood to your already stained hands. I don't know what to say. Maybe I am half-hearted. Then why don't you resign? You'll still have the obligation to keep things secret, but at least you won't have to feel guilty anymore. You may be my partner, but you're also simply a person who was requested by my client. Now that this research institute is fully developed, you aren't needed. If you don't even have the necessary determination to do research to begin with, you're an especially useless partner. I'll never quit researching. I'm not afraid of guilt or regret. My conviction is what will take me to the future. Just like Dr. Takano succeeded, I'll succeed alone. That's impressive. However, though my determination may not come close to yours, I too have a will, and that's why I'm here. As you said, I already have blood on my hands. After I arrived in Hinamizawa, they got even bloodier. So I can't just run from my responsibilities. I'll probably continue to be tormented by my unatoned sins. But I won't run. I'll get to the bottom of Hinamizawa syndrome. That's the least I can do for all the people who gave their lives for this research, and also for those who will give their lives from now on. Irie wore a determined look on his face. He appeared different from even a moment before, when he was baffled by Takano having brought up those painful memories. For a short while, Irie's eyes displayed his strong will, and then he turned around. We'll probably get consent for Rikichan's examination, so please start preparing for it. Yes, I understand, Director. They got their consent the following week. I love that last sentence to let them know. I don't think I'm going to do that cerebral spinal fluid one yet. Let me see what this one is again. Death of him, hospitalization. I'm pretty sure he's hospitalized at the point. And a third year, fourth year. Her dissection plan, his motive. Her detailed test results, and his decision. I'm pretty sure I can do this one. Like, these sort of go together again. Like, all of these tend to go together. And this one, do they? Not really, but it's pretty close. Help from the Queen Carrier. He must not be allowed his sense of responsibility. Pretty sure I have both of those. This is the third one. The truth about the park. Yep. And the third as well. This is the fourth. This is separate. There's the thing. Death of him. Completion of C-117. Not there yet. What's this? Roll of 1. I don't think we have that. Contacting the Erie Institute. We have this, I'm pretty sure. I should find out what that is. Detailed test result. So I do have that as well. Part-time job, footsteps. That's part of the 4th year. Yeah, these are both 4th year. In fact, this is required for this, literally. Moving on some more. Preview of lots, new wind. Awareness of his sins. We don't have that yet. Same with the death of those. Right. So that's in the 3rd year. Alright, I think we should do, not the cerebral smile. I think we should do this Rike one here. 103 dose experiment. I want to check those on. 103. There's 103 right there. Okay. Accident at the park. I should check that afterwards. Mysterious death, that's part 3 as well. So let's do this one. Oh, can't be connected yet. Whoops. So can I click it again after? I guess so. So I don't have her test results. I guess I have to do this. Yep. Sachi-kun is a good brother who takes great care of his sister. He went to visit Satsuko-chan straight after school and kept encouraging her to get better every day. Without even hearing Sachi-kun's stories, it's obvious to me that Satsuko-chan never had a good relationship with her step-parents. She especially didn't get along with her stepfather. Satsuko-chan even called a child abuse hotline once. Not only that, her parents ended up dying in an accident, so she just wasn't able to withstand all that damage. Satsuko-chan is still very young, so everything must have been horrible for her to go through. Fortunately, she has a wonderful brother. Emotional wounds are hard to heal, but nothing heals those wounds better than love from family members. I'm sure that one day, Satsuko-chan will be able to smile again. She's still in shock, but when she talks to Sachi-kun, she smiles a little bit. Oishi from the police department keeps requesting to see her, but I think I need to protect her for just a little longer. While he's passionate about his job, I wish he'd be a touch more sensitive. If he reminds her of her parents' accident, her emotional wounds will start to open again. That's the one point I worry about with Satsuko-chan. I heard someone knocking on the door. It was Takano-san. It doesn't look right wearing a nurse's uniform like that. She's a licensed doctor, so she should wear a white coat and act like one. Maybe this is fun for her, but I think she might be insulting the real nurses. I didn't say anything. Dr. Irie, may I talk to you? Oh, yes. Well, Sachi-kun, if you'll excuse me. Ah, sure. Hello, Sachi-kun. Please keep Satsuko-chan company. She's always alone, so I bet she's lonely. Okay? Oh no, that's not true. Okay, Sachi-kun, you're in charge. I got up and let Sachi-kun take over. Did something happen? Not right here. Let's go to your office. Takano-san smiled meaningfully. Usually, smiles bring happy feelings. But when it comes to Takano-san, that's rarely the case. Are you sure? Yes. The initial test results show there's a possibility she's at L3 or above. We need to keep her here and run some more tests, so we can connect it after this. The results aren't in yet, but from what I can see, it's very possible she's at L4. Takano-san's eyes sparkled in a weird way. There's a reason for that. For us, finding patients in the terminal stage is a valuable boon to our research. In fact, as a result of dissecting the murder suspect from last year, we've made great progress in our research. In other words, we finally managed to isolate the pathogen. We also discovered that when the host dies, the pathogen melts away within a few hours. Once that happens, it's undetectable. That's why we never found the pathogen when we performed autopsies. Our research made a lot of progress after that. What we found in this past year has easily surpassed what the late Dr. Takano found in decades. We're now studying the nature, the effect, and the symptoms of the pathogen, as well as treatments and vaccines. In other words, a living specimen who's at the terminal stage is a necessity for our research. Time for Takano to make some. However, we rarely find a patient who's gone that far, who's reached L5. Hinamizawa syndrome once created huge numbers of L5 patients, but today it doesn't have such potency. Because of that, we have to secure L5 patients, or patients who are close to reaching L5, as quickly as possible. Satsuko-chan possibly qualifies to be that next sacrifice. Called a sacrifice, literally. Oyasho-sama's curse, the sacrifice, and so on. Alright, let's go. To keep this strange disease a secret, we can't let patients who may be at L5 go. We have to run more tests first. Then we'll figure out what to do next. In any case, Satsuko-chan seems so calm. Her behavior is nothing like the man from last year. Initial tests are in error sometimes. We'll have to wait for the results of more detailed tests to determine how serious her condition is. Okay, let's admit her for observation. Please let the staff know how to get things ready. That sounds like a formal answer, but if the results come back positive, that'll be the green light for her dissection. I don't know Satsuko-chan that well, but I've known her brother Satsuki-kun through the baseball team for a long time. How could I dissect the apple of Satsuki-kun's eyes? I can feel scary images flashing in my head for the first time. Don't worry, everything is already taken care of. She smiled as if telling me that the dissection is already being prepared for too. Is it just her who's smiling? Am I smiling like her too? When I dissected that man last year, I did feel guilt beforehand. But once I started, it was like I was in paradise. All the pieces of the puzzle that were left by the late Dr. Takano fell into place, and at the same time, they didn't. How exciting it was. Knowing that we are the first ones to take the first steps to solve a mystery, that is. I don't even know how to explain this feeling to those who have never experienced it. There's no way to describe it with words. The only thing I can say is that even a year later, I still remember it vividly. So if the results show that Satsuki-kun's beloved sister is to be dissected, can I control myself? Can I stay calm? But that means I'm a failure of a human being. I know very well that the Hojo family was treated poorly by the villagers, and I know what Satsuko-chan had to go through. Also, I know Satsuki-kun loves his sister, who is his one and only blood relative. How can I dissect Satsuko-chan using my research as an excuse? I didn't feel much guilt for the man from last year, but I feel unbearable guilt towards Satsuko-chan. That means what I did last year was very sinful. I don't care if a stranger dies, but I don't want Satsuko-chan to die. That's not right. All lives are equally precious. I tried to convince myself that he was a violent murderer, but maybe he only became that way because he was at the terminal stage. I don't know anything about him before he became deranged. Maybe he was a model citizen who was worthy of respect. Unfortunately, he became ill and ended up doing what he did. Maybe he was a victim himself, just like my father. I know more about Hinamizawa syndrome than anybody. This disease makes people act in bizarre ways, without those people realizing it. So when the people at the terminal stage do such strange and violent things, one should be sympathetic. I already knew that back when I decided to go down this path. I should have remembered it sooner, but I only did just now. I finally realized what simple research I'm working on. Satsuko Hojo's detailed test results came back. The results say L5. She's at the terminal stage of the terminal state. Really? Really? Oh, it is. Kekkawa L5. Something, no something. It's repeated, so it's like... But they couldn't phrase it a bit better? The terminal stage of the syndrome, anything? It's actually a surprising result. In last year's case, the patient was extremely deranged. According to Takano-san's records, he complained about itching coming from the lymph nodes all over his body, and wanted to claw at his throat, just as the late Dr. Takano mentioned. But Satoko-chan isn't displaying such symptoms. Even in the late Takano's data, throat clawing is said to be a characteristic symptom of terminal stage patients. However, not all patients experience that symptom. Besides, emotional expression is very different in each person. Even if it's the same emotion, one patient may express it rather violently, and another may express it calmly. There is no way of knowing by just looking at a person. But Satoko-chan's detailed test results say that she's at the terminal stage of the terminal stage, L5. In other words, she may be feeling what the man from last year was feeling. It's just that she isn't expressing that feeling in the same way the man was. Hinamizawa syndrome affects the frontal lobes of the brain. It stimulates the most primitive of emotions, doubt, very strongly. As a result, terminal patients are trapped in delusions and paranoia, and end up committing horrible crimes. Satoko-chan seems to show improvement when she's exchanging friendly words with Satsuki-kun, but there's a paranoia stirring inside her that may put her in a deranged state at any moment. I can't let her leave the clinic like this. However, if things go according to the manual, I'll have to make a decision on her dissection. My decision will only be a formality. I can't actually refuse. Takano-san appears to be already working on the dissection schedule. That plan will then come to me. Would I feel the same way while dissecting Satoko-chan? Would I be able to experience that trance once again? No, the question is, can I fight the temptation? As I pretend to question myself, I'm letting Takano-san prepare things on her own. By doing so, am I passively agreeing to Satoko-chan's dissection? If possible, I want to save her. I don't want her to be a sacrifice for this research. I don't want to dissect her. Then, what about the man from last year? Do I only care about the lives of the people I know? If I don't dissect her, do I let her live and leave the clinic? Do I simply wait for her to become deranged and commit a horrible crime? And then she'll end up here, just like the man from last year? And I'll end up dissecting her anyway? The man from last year was dissected alive, and kept that way for several months. Oof! With his skull left open, he wasn't allowed to die for several months. He was kept alive just for our cruel experiments. I don't want to do that to her. I don't know what to do. Even debating and agonizing over it is leading toward consent to her dissection by elimination. So she is still hospitalized at this point. Just like in the previous one I had seen of her. Sawn of her. So I should be able to click this now, right? Her detailed test results, yes. And his decision. There we go. Plans for Satoko-chan's dissection are moving right along. I don't want Satsuki-kun to be sad. I feel pity for Satoko-chan in her harsh circumstances. I'm still struggling with how much I have to sacrifice for the sake of research. Irie? Huh? Ah, sorry. What is it, Rika-chan? One of my friends has been in the clinic for a long time. Do you think she has Hinamizawa syndrome? Who told you that? No one. I just thought about it. So what do you think, Irie? Does Satoko have Hinamizawa syndrome? Rika-chan is on our side. There's nothing I have to hide from her. Actually, I probably shouldn't keep anything from her. Yes. The problems with her parents, and then their sudden deaths. It was all too much for her to bear. Maybe that's what triggered it. What did the test results say? L5. She seems perfectly fine on the surface, but her emotions are extremely unstable. Since the other day, she's even been refusing to meet with Satsuki-kun. Satsuki told me. He's worried that it's taking a very long time for Satoko to get better. Irie, what will happen to Satoko? Satoko-chan is Rika-chan's best friend. How can I tell her that we're planning to dissect Satoko-chan? However, even if I don't say anything, she already knows that Satoko-chan's situation is extremely poor. Didn't you find out a lot of things when you examined me? Sure, of course. We're even testing medicine which might be able to control the symptoms. Can't you give that medicine to Satoko? I thought about it, but it's too dangerous. We're still in the trial stages and trying to gather more data. We can't use it on someone who's in a delicate situation like Satoko-chan. Then, if you won't try that medicine, what will happen to Satoko? She spoke as if aware of our plans for Satoko-chan. No, she must actually know. I've told her about most of my research. She's more mature than she looks, so it'd be easier for her to figure out. If there's even a 1% chance of Satoko getting better, then I think we should take that chance. It's extremely risky. Worst case, she could immediately display terminal symptoms and hallucinate, or potentially lose her consciousness, and spend the rest of her life just staring blankly at a wall. Either one would be too cruel a fate for her. So we should dissect her. So are you saying it's better to have her die in her sleep? Irie, just like Takano says, there are no guarantees in medicine. But if we don't do anything, Satoko will die for sure. I think it's clear what we should do. That's true. You're right. But I know too well. C-103, the medicine that's being tested, may not even be something that can be used. It may not even have a 1% chance of success. Worse, I can't even imagine what kind of tragic end she'd meet if her body rejects the medicine. That's why. I'm tempted to believe it would be more merciful to feed her favorite food, let her gently fall asleep, and after that, dissect her while she dreams, and then leave her alive for multiple months. I don't want to admit it, but Takano-san is right. I'm being indecisive and showing a lack of resolve. How effective could the medicine made by someone like that really be? So, because it was medicine I created myself, I couldn't even believe there might 0.1% chance of success. I think we can believe in it. She spoke as if she read my mind. Surprised, I raised my head to look at her, and found her giving me a reassuring look I never would have imagined someone her age capable of. People's lives depend on your job. It's almost absurd that a human being can control life and death like that. I can't even imagine the pressure. Her voice hasn't changed, but I feel like Riku-chan is admonishing me. Almost as if she knows what it's like to be responsible for human lives. Guilt and regret are a part of that. That's why you can't use the medicine on Satoko. Isn't that right? Takano-san said the same thing when she criticized me earlier. I'm being criticized again, but in the opposite direction. But that's why I can trust you with Satoko. What? Human lives are precious. You understand that very well, and that's why you do what you do. Without knowing that, how could you heal people? Do you think I trust medicine created by Takano, who thinks humans are just her guinea pigs? I shouldn't have laughed, but I couldn't help it. I felt like I should laugh. If both you and Takano each produced different medicine, I think yours would be the one to cure her, because your medicine came from your heart. Your will to heal people is what cures them. You're absolutely right. I can't believe you're admonishing me about medicine. I let you use my body for Satoko. Everything you took out from me is for her. If you created that medicine with the knowledge of how precious human lives are, then of course it'll work on Satoko. Do Shrine Maidens take confessions? If they do, she's doing a great job being a Shrine Maiden at this age. This will be a gamble. The question is whether Satoko-chan will accept it. We don't need to tell her. Learning of the Hinamizawa syndrome will only dredge up the deep scar on her heart again. What did she mean by those words? When I realized it later, I was surprised by how thoughtful and perceptive she was. Let's stop plans for the dissection. We're going to give Hojo Satoko C-103. I'll do my best to increase the chance by even 1%. Don't worry, it'll work. You shouldn't be so optimistic. I know it'll work. It's already decided. That's a very reassuring prophecy from the Furude Shrine's Shrine Maiden. You can do it. Yay. Alright, this is a perfect time to feed the cat and use the bathroom. Because I'm still not done for today, that's for sure. Otherwise, I'll have to do this for like 2 more weeks. Just a bit stretching before we get to the break point. I just want to know what I want to choose what I want to do next. So that's this, and that's that. So yeah, H170 is the new thing. Capsule. These are both 3rd years. This is a 4th, but we have the bat label. I think we have this. We don't have this yet. Definitely don't have that or that. We have that now. Don't have that, but that's probably from this. 117. High fever. We don't have that for a while still. We have this, I believe. We have this. Don't have that, of course. And then this is all like very late stuff. Watermelon from the... so that's probably this right here. These two go together. Formation of the club. His awareness of his sins. We don't have that for a while. And this is all old stuff. So I think we should do discontinuation. Yeah, we should do this next. And then I'm going to stop right here. Be right back. Back, but I'm going to have some water first. Because I know my throat won't be able to last much longer otherwise. And again. C-103's implementation on Satoko is going well so far. It wouldn't make any difference to me if the experiment failed. However, Ari's extraordinary focus and attention to the experiment has avoided Satoko Hojo hallucinating or turning into a vegetable during the experiment. And surprisingly, we see prospects of her returning to normal life despite reaching L5. C-103 still has many issues, but this experiment has proved that even a person who has reached L5 can be cured. I didn't believe in it at first, but I guess I have to acknowledge Ari's hard work. Only Ari could have done this. He was tormented by naive humanism and didn't want to make mistakes, and that's why he felt obligated to cure Satoko Hojo. The reason why I dislike Ari isn't because of his achievements or abilities, but because of that weakness. But this time, I had to praise him for it. I saw your report. I must tip my hat to you. No, I only did my job as a researcher. If that means fulfilling my duty as a doctor as well, then nothing could please me more. It's hardly an exaggeration to say that Satoko is now our most valuable specimen. After all, she's the first human to reach L5 and live. That's true. We'll let her go back to her life and keep our eyes on her. I'm going to tell her to come here every Sunday for a checkup. But how are you going to explain to her that she has to give herself a C-103 shot 3 times a day, and also that she has to come here every Sunday? She has no subjective symptoms. I'm still trying to come up with a good excuse. I think I'll tell her that I want her to help me with my research. She has to give herself shots daily and to come here every Sunday for a checkup. I'll pay her for helping me, or something like that. I guess Iri is determined to cure Satogo Hojo no matter what. He seems determined to keep her off the dissection table. He and I are in different positions, but I don't have any complaints about his naive ideals, so long as they translate directly into passion for our research. If his plans can be put into effect and produce a different result than the dissection would, jeez, then they'll still be useful to the overall understanding of the Hinamizo syndrome. I have nothing against Satogo Hojo. It's only that I see her as a research specimen. If she can be useful in that capacity without being dissected, that's perfectly fine with me. We have to get permission from her guardian to give her shots 3 times a day. After her parents died, her aunt and uncle have been taking care of her, right? Maybe I'll go talk to them. I hope they agree to her involvement in such suspicious research. Oh, don't worry. I'm sure they'll be happy to, once they realize they'll receive 100 to 200,000 yen every month for it. Do we have enough money? Sure, as long as we can produce documents that'll convince Jiro-san. Okay, now I'll work on that. Also, we'll need to take action to prevent stressing Satsuko-chan. We don't want her to return to L5. I hear her aunt and uncle are very mercenary. Perhaps we can handle them with cash. I plan to provide my help with their guidance, too. I've heard Satsuko-chan isn't getting along with her aunt and uncle. I never thought that that'd affect us in any way. But now, Eri has to deal with them. Maybe he's developed some kind of sense of responsibility or duty as her guardian. I don't really care. The more responsible he feels, the more progress our research makes. That'll be a plus for me. By the way, I saw the report on the H-170. Oh, compared to your success, it's nothing. But I guess it was some kind of accomplishment. It's honestly ironic. This same research center that's produced the remedy to save her from derangement has developed a dangerous drug that could instantly induce it. Iri wasn't involved in the H-170 research. That was my work. In fact, even if I asked him, he wouldn't have agreed to be involved. This dangerous reagent was developed during the process of uncovering the mechanisms behind how the pathogens controlling Satogo Hojo's brain could induce derangement or paranoia in their host. To put it bluntly, injecting H-170 into a patient with Hinamizo syndrome forced them to express terminal symptoms. It threw the brain into a simulated state of agitation, intentionally forcing the pathogen to grow unstable. If we continue researching this, it'll be possible to drive anyone with Hinamizo syndrome violently insane at any time. Studying the mechanism behind that will help to solve the syndrome's mysteries. So this study on H-170 will be extremely important to future research. Also, this medicine has military applications, as the client requested. At this point, there's absolutely no use for it. But once our research progresses a bit further, this H-170 could be spread at the right moment to cause a certain type of reaction. Compared to a killer virus, it seems like a useless pathogen. But there's no way to detect it in a dead body, and it makes it look as though the person just went insane spontaneously, so it must have some useful applications. The Marco Polo bridge incident threatened to end research on Hinamizo syndrome before. A historically important incident like that couldn't have been created by a killer virus. But it's possible with Hinamizo syndrome. The elders of the Alphabet Project, the sponsor for our research, can think whatever they want about that. I don't care how they use what I've learned. My purpose is to solve the mysteries of Hinamizo syndrome and to make people realize how important this research is. Also, to make people acknowledge my grandfather's accomplishments and achievements. Any military applications were just byproducts of the process that I didn't care about. The clients will appreciate your accomplishment. Maybe our budget will increase for next term. Passion alone can't keep research going. We need money. We must thank the sponsor for giving us so much funding. For this much money to come from public expenses. Maybe Japan is richer than I thought. They're public expenses, but they're expenses that can't be made public. Iri has no idea what I had to go through to get that money. Anyway, our research is going extremely well. We don't know what we'll find out about Hinamizawa syndrome, but I'm sure every mystery will eventually be solved. I can hardly wait. What the syndrome indicates is that humans are simply empty containers, and what we believe to be our will is simply the actions of parasites that live in our brains. If that mystery was solved, it would have a greater impact than anything else in history. That is a truth which nobody wants to believe. This is an achievement my grandfather predicted back during his time. Ah, I know now. I know the reason why my grandfather was so fascinated by his work. Alright, so now we have H170 as well, I think. I just want to check that requirement somewhere on page like 1, 3, or 4 or something. What is this one? 3rd year. Riku's father being marked. That's not it yet. So she's aunt. Here it is. Distrust of the mother of a queen. Right. Oh, this is Rika's mother. Must not be allowed. Sense of responsibility. Execution. Let's move on some more. Routine inspection might be a good one to go for. But I think I want to do more of Sachi if I can. No. This one. Yeah. Should be it, because I definitely had that earlier. And then this is contacting the Area Institute is required. Should have this. Yep. The gathering place inside of the Furude Shrine is in fact the headquarters of the Onikafuchi Guardians. Normally, a shrine should be a calm and quiet place, but there are anti-dam signs everywhere, making it very obvious what this location has become. There are over 30 members of the Guardians here at the moment, and they are having a heated conversation about their plans for the future. Although this meeting place is on the Furude family's property, it's a community facility, so it closes at 9 p.m. Of course, sometimes the discussion gets so heated that it goes on past closing time, but meetings are supposed to end by 9. If a discussion ends early, they usually chit-chat until that time. That's what usually happens. Of course, they mostly talk about the dam even when they chit-chat. They talk about someone's mistreatment at the government office, or someone getting arrested unjustly, or complain that people at the dam construction site are too violent. Since it's idle chatter, the topics are slightly emotional, and because of that, there was a good deal of bad-mouthing the Hojos. Then she threw the circulation notes away. Can you believe that? That woman is crazy. Just the other day, she got into a huge argument with Makino-san's grandmother at the trash pickup. You know, the husband is rude too. He's so irrational. Ah, did you see him at the explanatory meeting? That was bad, huh? I can't believe they're still here. I wish they'd just leave. He said something about money. He has absolutely no shame. No, no, no. If you talk about being irrational, his wife is the same or even worse. It must be hereditary. Yes, the mother and wife, the husband and wife, who are definitely the same. I see their daughter shopping quite often, so I used to say hello to her, but she never replied. Can you believe that? So I got tired of it, and I don't say anything to her anymore. And it's not because I hate the Hojos. Hey, their son always looks so depressed, doesn't he? It's not our fault, though. By now, the Hojo family has become the enemy of the whole village. Badmouthing the Hojo family was the greatest shared topic that anyone could easily contribute to. If he had known how powerful the three families were, especially the Sonozaki family, and if he had known Oryo-san's character, he wouldn't have said the things he did. The Hojo couple are residents here. Though they were never very enthusiastic about the council activities, they should have known what kind of person Oryo-san is. He could have imagined just what would happen to him if he talked to her that way. Yet, he let his anger take over and voiced his unpleasant feelings. So, most people think that the Hojo family brought their isolation upon themselves. If they wanted to negotiate with the government regarding the move, they should have done so privately. Yet he was foolish enough to express himself at a public gathering like that. So not too many sympathize with the Hojo family. Ever since the big fight at the explanatory meeting, the Sonozaki family has looked at the Hojo family as their enemy and started to go after them. That caused the other pro-dam families to go quiet, fearing they'd be made into scapegoats too, and those who wanted to leave were bitterly forced to give up. Even those people started criticizing the Hojo couple, saying they could have gotten their compensation to leave if the two hadn't picked that reckless fight. Oh, that, that actually does make a small amount of sense. But it takes two to fight. Both the anti-dam and pro-dam people hate the Hojos now, and the family has become even more isolated. Moreover, the Hojos are both very aggressive. They should have stayed quiet, at least until things settled down, but they didn't. That alienated the handful of people who took pity on them as well. So now nobody even says anything to them. All of that was immediately obvious by listening to the foul talk here and there at the gathering place. Rika always helps out by putting the teacups away, so I'm sure she hears what they say as well. One of the Hojo family members they're bad-mouthing is Rika's friend, Satsuko-chan. It hurts to think about what Rika feels while hearing that. As priest of the Furude Shrine, should I let this continue? Oyasho-sama is a god who makes peace between enemies. When the humans and demons fought, Oyasho-sama descended from heaven and mediated between both sides. As the caretaker of the shrine, I must do something before it goes too far. I'm sitting next Oryo-san, who is spitefully disparaging the Hojo family. So that ass was talking shit to me. Who the hell cares? He'll be cursed by Oyasho-sama, that's for sure. The elderly people cheer her on as they listen to her speak. If I barge in now, I have a feeling it won't be a peaceful conversation. But I have to make up my mind. As the priest of the Furude Shrine. Also, for the sake of Rika's friend, Satsuko-chan. Oryo-san, don't you think you've said enough by now? See, now he's talking to her in public. Huh? What the hell are you trying to tell me? Well, I'm sure Hojo-san really didn't mean what he said. Isn't it a bit much for this kind of treatment to go on for so long? Shut up! You heard what he said, didn't you? Weren't you pissed? He pissed me off. Shit. Oryo-san is the head of the Sonozaki family. The heir to the demons. She never forgives anyone who stands against her. So there's no way she would even listen to what I'm trying to say. Oryo-san and the others became furious and refused to listen to me. I also mentioned that the dam construction plan will be cancelled soon, so they should calm down already. I said that because the staff at the Erie Clinic told me that the government is putting some kind of pressure on the Ministry of Construction. But thinking that I'm being an opportunist, soon criticism of me began to circulate the room. After that, I realized that I'd become branded as a fence-sitter. If the demons are willing to listen, then there's a chance to make peace. But how can I make peace with people who refuse to listen? I destroyed their mood, so I just have to give up and shut my mouth. Then I felt a little hand on my back. Rika, it's getting late. Why don't you go home? No matter how hard we try, we can't reach them. Rika looked into the distance while she spoke. The evil of this corrupted village is probably beyond the means of those of us living in that muck. But I won't lose hope. Surely, someone who will destroy the stagnation will arrive. Very soon, I know. Her eyes shone as if seeing a future that only the maiden of the Furude Shrine could see. Alright, so where should we go now? Yeah, we don't have the third year yet. Well, we do now. Rika's mother's suspicion is required. I'm pretty sure we already have that, but I feel like I should do, oh, the mother of the queen, so I don't have that yet. Truth of the Shirakawa Park accident. Do we have the truth yet? Oh, it's probably this right here. Execution order for the third year. Don't have that stuff yet. Let's do the routine inspection, I'd say. Completion of 117? No, we don't have that yet. We have, what's it called? 103 and 170 are all we have right now. So let's go ahead and do the routine inspection. The lights came on in the meeting room as the slideshow ended, and all the auditors began to applaud, praising the area institution's dramatic accomplishments. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. To be honest with you, I wasn't expecting too much from this Hinamizawa syndrome research. I figured that even if there was progress, it would be 3 steps forward and 2 steps back every decade. Oh my, how impressive it is to achieve so much in such a short period of time. This is all thanks to you, Director Irie. Oh no, this is all because of the staff that supported me and Takano-san too. Don't be so humble. Director Irie is a genius in the field of neurology. After all, he's also produced greater achievements than any other doctor when it comes to the brain. That's true. Not many doctors as young as you have nearly as much experience operating on brains. Congratulations, Lieutenant Colonel Irie. Now I can go back to Tokyo with my head held high. I'm honored we gave you something good to take back with you, Tomitaki-san. By the way, could you please stop calling me Lieutenant Colonel? I just can't get used to it. I remember the Risa. Oh, Risa-san at this point. I bet you do, huh? You sure were a huge help. You're the one who secured funding for our research, even when we couldn't produce feasible results. We couldn't have done this without you. It wasn't any trouble. But really, the results you presented today are just brilliant. Not only have you found the cause of the syndrome, you've also provided a clear path towards future research. We're looking forward to hearing more progress when we come again next time. I'm sure the Tokyo office will quit bothering us about cutting your budget with these sorts of results. Man, the fact they wanted to cut it within, like, what? 1 year, 2 years, maybe? After all, we nearly lost our budget for the canned coffee we provided to you all, didn't we? Wah! Tomitaki-kun, make sure you report our progress to Tokyo well enough that they give us enough funding to hold a party. We've been getting nothing but the stick. It's time for the carrot. We'll be happiest if that carrot comes back in the shape of funding. And with that congenial atmosphere, our routine audit was over. Area was surrounded being questioned by National Institute of Infectious Diseases workers who had joined the auditors. Takano-san, congratulations. I can't really say this out loud, but all the progress I've seen tonight is thanks to your hard work. Thank you, Jiro-san. Jiro-san and I are the only ones here who know that strings were pulled in order to create the Area Institute, so only Jiro-san can understand why I had to go through. But I've only just risen to the stage for my research. My opponent and I are finally in the same arena, that's all. The critical fight comes after this, and it should be getting even more exciting in the future. By the way, Manager Nakagawa told me to tell you that he wants you to hold a presentation in Tokyo. Even the Alphabet Board wants you to come meet with them. I guess they all want to hear this directly from you. Oh my, isn't having you explain enough? No, I don't think that's what they mean. I bet they want to meet such pretty researcher in person. Maybe. My, aren't you being silly, Jiro-san? Excuse me, Major Takano. There's a phone call for you from Tokyo. Thank you for holding. This is Takano. Hey, how are you doing? Koizumi-sensei, thank you for taking time to call me. You know, I heard you made a significant breakthrough, Mio-chan. So I had to call to congratulate you and get the cat on me again. Oh, he's a happy boy. He ate his food. Thank you very much. Yes, thanks to your support, we've been able to accomplish the first step of identifying the microbe that causes Hinamizawa syndrome. I see. Great job, Mio-chan. I'm sure Takano-kun is very happy in heaven right now. That's a little too early to say. My grandfather was attempting to go beyond merely identifying the cause of the syndrome. His work was about showing the possibility of human thoughts actually being controlled by parasitic agents in our bodies. But with what Takano does, doesn't she prevent that? I feel like she should have, let the destruction happen. Be like, look at all these 2,000 people go crazy. Only when that is proven will his research be recognized for the great achievement it is. When we're able to explain all thoughts and religions with parasites. The world is going to be tossed into chaos. Wow, how interesting. I can just imagine how the religious big shots will react once they find out that their leaders are parasites. How interesting. I would love to see that. I won't die until you show that to me, Mio-chan. Please don't say that. Do look forward to it, though. I'll make sure that this research will spread shock throughout the world. Then the whole world will finally realize how great my grandfather was, and they'll be fighting each other to read over the documents he left behind. All the written documents. Only then can I say that I've repaid my debt to him. I'm a little envious of Takano-kun. I don't want money, you know? I don't mind getting rid of half of what I have. I just wish I had a grandchild who would carry on my legacy. Thank you so much. Those words mean so much to me. By the way, I sent you a present. It's a nice bottle of wine for you to celebrate with. Ah, I didn't know your address, so I sent it to the clinic. However, they told me they are having a difficult time importing it, so it may take a little while. But when it comes, please have a party with the people who helped you. Celebratory wine. Well then, I wonder what expensive sort of drink Koizumi-sensei will be sending us. Oh, it's not that kind of expensive. Don't you remember, Mio-chan? Takano-kun used to keep a particular bottle of wine. I remember. That's right. My grandfather kept a certain bottle of wine. I don't know if he bought it himself or if someone gave it to him. But he treasured it, and he always said he'd open it when his research finally gained recognition. I was a child then, so I don't even remember what brand it was. But Mr. Koizumi would know. He went through all the trouble to find the same bottle of wine for this special occasion. For the first time in a while, Takano felt the same sunny warmth she experienced during her time with her grandfather. Thank you very much, Uncle Koizumi. I like it when you call me that, Mio-chan. I don't feel like you're speaking to me when you say Koizumi-sensei. I can't help but smile along with him, because I think Tomitake and Irie were just having a similar exchange. If you like it that way, then I'll be happy to call you that when there's nobody around. I'll be happier if you'd call me that even in front of people. I don't know exactly how old he is, but if he can laugh so energetically, he'll live for many more years to come. I guess the saying about living a long life is true after all. Takano-kun and I both wish you were truly part of our family. We really did. My grandfather had his own family, of course, but because he was so into his research, he became estranged from his wife. They were legally married, but they lived separately. I never met his family when I was a child. I only met them after my grandfather committed suicide. Oh! During his latter years, my grandfather went into psychological despair, began to look at his life with cynicism. His condition became worse over time, and he was shocked at his own dementia. He was afraid of living while his consciousness degraded. So, he jumped off the rooftop of the hospital. Only my name was in his suicide note. None of his family members' names were in it. That's when all his relatives showed up and took everything my grandfather left behind. They were afraid I was going to get his estate. They had lawyers and all that, so I backed down. I asked for everything in his study in return. Those idiots don't understand the value of my grandfather's research. They were actually happy to strike a deal out of court, and they could also get rid of the piles of papers and jars with human organs in them. They never even showed up once when he was alive, yet, like hyenas, they appeared after his death. I'd never let them put their hands all over my grandfather's research. Fortunately, I was able to protect my grandfather's soul from their tainted hands. Okay, I'll get going here. If there's anything you need, be sure to call Uncle Koizumi, okay? I'll do anything for my granddaughter. Thank you, Uncle Koizumi. I'll work even harder. Okay, so he's still alive after this, so that one isn't there yet. And the wine hasn't arrived yet, so that's not here yet either. I think I should try to do more for the third year's sacrifice using the stuff about the accident at the park and whatnot. I think I have to do this one, because this is an accident, and then about the Shirakawa accident. I think this is execution for the order for the third year's curse. That's not there yet. This one is Riku's father, mother's suspicion isn't there yet. Third year's curse is required. This one, that's the death. Bat to beat her to death is required? Huh. Not there yet. I still don't think I have Rika's high fever yet. 117 isn't completed yet. Let's see, I have this. I don't have that yet. So I think I'll do this, I guess. What's this one? Yeah, the bottle of the wine or toast. Maybe it is there, but maybe not. It's been a while for this music. A group of boys are playing baseball under the powerful sun. The sound of cicadas makes the heat stand out even more. But to those boys, it's just another kind of cheering from the crowds. Of course, they go through training exercises to build stamina. But the boys don't actually like such routine activities. What they look forward to the most is the free game after practice. The school in Hinamizawa is actually borrowed from the forestry service. The schoolyard is made of gravel, so it's not very appropriate for playing sports on. Compared to that, the grounds at the school in Okonomiya are properly maintained for athletic activities, so the kids grow even more energetic when they come here. Kids from Hinamizawa really don't care if the ground is made of gravel or not. The other instructor is watching the game, so I decided to go get some drinks for the team. Coach, where are you going? I thought I'd go get some drinks for everyone. Do you mind helping me, Satoshi-kun? Oh no, not at all. I thought he was about to say no. Satoshi-kun decided to come along with me. Sometimes kids don't like what grown-ups choose, so I'm glad he agreed to help. Satoshi-kun and I got into the car and headed to the grocery store nearby. Because we don't have many vending machines here. Manager, how's Satsuko doing? Well, she's doing fine. Although it's an extremely slow process, her emotional wounds are healing. I think we should let her rest for a little longer. It's natural for Satoshi-kun to be worried. Satsuko-chan has been in the hospital for over 2 weeks. Oh wow, this is much earlier than I thought. Of course, he doesn't know his sister has Hinamizawa syndrome. Not only that, she's almost at level 5. Yeah, she could become deranged at any moment. He believes she's depressed because of the shock of their parents' accident. He came to the clinic every day to cheer his sister up, but Satsuko-chan has become emotionally unstable and was showing some dangerous symptoms. So we called off the visits. Oh. In fact, Satsuko-chan is not doing so well. 5, the stage she's at, is a very abnormal one. The man from last year, who was at the same stage, was acting so abnormal that even a drug addict in his final stages would have turned and run. There's no guarantee Satsuko-chan won't fall into the same condition. Okay, so I should have done this one a bit earlier. When we performed the autopsy on that man last year, we gained the true identity of the syndrome and a great understanding of its mechanisms. We even discovered some important facts that may lead to the development of a cure. However, we have yet to find a method of actually curing the disease. I feel like this should have been necessary for that moment with Rika. So if Satsuko-chan becomes unrecoverable, we may have to dissect her, just like we did the man from last year. How can I tell Satoshi-kun about his sister's situation? All I can do is make vague comments and lie to him that she's recovering. What if she becomes much worse? That would make me an unforgivable liar. The tiny bit of conscience that remains in me hurts. If it's okay with your clinic, can she stay there a little longer? Why are you saying that? I thought you wanted her to come home as soon as possible, so I'm a little surprised. Well, actually, Satsuko doesn't get along with our aunt. I heard she didn't get along with her parents. But she can't get along with your aunt and uncle either? Satsuko doesn't open up to grown-ups. Satoshi-kun has told me about their family background. Their mother's constant remarriages wounded her children deeply. Satoshi-kun was able to overcome it, but Satsuko-chan was too young to be able to do that. That left her traumatized, and now has the tendency to distrust or dislike guardians who aren't related to her. Actually, nobody would like a guardian who isn't related to them. It's not just Satsuko-chan. But usually people try to deal with that, even if they don't like it. I guess Satsuko-chan's not capable of that. I need some water. Our uncle isn't home much. Besides, even when he is, he's either sleeping or watching TV, so he's not the problem. But our aunt really goes after Satsuko. Why doesn't she like her? I can guess why. Satsuko-chan's parents were dam proponents, and because of that, the villagers considered the aunt and uncle part of the Hojo family, and ostracized them as such. Moreover, they passed away suddenly in an accident and left 2 children behind, so I guess there would be more hate there than gratitude. If she had been obedient like Satoshi-kun, everything would have been fine. But Satsuko-chan can't be that way. She shows that in her attitude and expressions, which leads to her and our aunt having a big fight. I've told my aunt about Satsuko's situation, but she just can't understand. I think you're a great big brother, Satoshi-kun. You're the one and only relative Satsuko-chan has left now. Right, I feel that way too. Satoshi-kun said with a slight hint of a sigh. He doesn't say it, but it seems Satoshi-kun has grown tired of having to cover for Satsuko-chan every time she and her aunt fight. He's a good person, as well as a good big brother, so I'm sure he'll do anything to cover for his sister. But that's a very exhausting thing to keep doing forever. Satoshi-kun was already doing that when their parents were alive, and eventually his mental equilibrium couldn't handle the strain. He grew sick, and he visited my clinic. I thought his circumstances might have improved after their initial cause. His parents were gone. But it seems things were even worse than before. I understand. I can't release Satsuko-chan if things are like that. Her symptoms may return again. Don't worry about the hospital fees. I'll make sure Satsuko-chan truly recovers. While trying to pretend I'm listening to his request, I feel a little disgusted at myself for making such selfish excuses. I'll make sure. Takano-san is working on her dissection plan as we speak. If that's possible, that'll help me too. What? I mean, if Satsuko stays in the clinic a little while longer, I can relax as well. That's all. What do you mean? As soon as Satsuko comes back, I know she'll get into fights with my aunt again. Then it's back to those days of constant fighting and screaming again. And I'll probably get dragged into it too. So if Satsuko were hospitalized for a very long time, that would be the easiest on me. But when I think like that, I hate myself. Satoshi-kun. Satoshi-kun is a great big brother who always sticks up for his little sister. But that doesn't mean he doesn't feel burdened. To think things like that, what a terrible big brother I am. The more I think that way, the more I hate myself. Satoshi-kun said, sniffling once. His expression was one of anguish, as if truly feeling his own sin. Recognition of his sin. His desire to be a model big brother is putting himself under greater pressure. I feel bad for Satsuko-chan, but I also feel bad for Satoshi-kun in a different way. As someone who knows the both of them well, I feel that I must be their ally, since they don't have anyone else who cares about them. Alright, from here I'm going to check on that park incident. I feel like we need to have that very soon. And that might be the last one for today. Now I'll do what I did last week where I write down all the stuff. And I'll test this. Pretty sure a bottle of wine for a toast is required. Maybe it isn't that yet. Maybe it comes after his death? I don't know. Let's go back. I want to do this. Must not be allowed to visit. That's already there. Sense of responsibility as a big brother. I definitely have that. Yeah. Doing this will give us that. Yep, it's here. Satoshi-chan's dissection plan has been scrubbed, and we're getting ready to administer an almost totally untested medicine. See, I feel like this should have been required. This experimental medicine suppresses the production of a certain type of hormone, and, in doing so, it'll stop the transmission of syndrome triggering Satoshi-chan's condition. The mechanism of Hinamizo syndrome is as follows. The pathogen takes over the frontal lobe of the patient's brain, and then induces increased responsiveness to paranoia. As a result, a patient voluntarily carries out excessively defensive behaviors to a problematic extent. If this induction can be cut off, then it will be possible to save terminal patients from becoming deranged. But it only cuts off an induction, so it's not really a cure. Ironically, the brain is an organ that learns. Once the brain has learned that to be excessively paranoid due to the Hinamizuwa syndrome. Even after the pathogen is eliminated, the brain doesn't simply unlearn that paranoia. In short, even if the pathogen doesn't induce derangement, the patient will be directed to such emotions of their own volition. Thus, it's impossible to completely escape the nearly deranged L5 state. The proverb, "a burnt child dreads the fire," is a good example of this. Even after the burn on your tongue heals, the fear of being burned by food again remains. When it ends up being a good thing, we call it learning a lesson, and we call it trauma when it doesn't. We predict Satsuko-chan's treatment will take a significantly long time, requiring both medication, such as administering psychotropics, and mental care like counseling. We have to slowly unravel her mind's solidified paranoia, while also suppressing the syndrome's induction of derangement. This is the treatment plan for terminal patients like Satsuko-chan. However, as we're going to stimulate the parts of her brain that affect her emotions while they're being stimulated by the pathogen at the same time, it's possible there could be unexpected side effects. Both her mental and physical strength hold the key to our success. We were going to begin the experiment once she regains her emotional stability and physical strength, but... Oh, someone who threatens to disturb her emotional stability has been coming here every day. Oishi, the sly old detective from the Okonomiya Police Department. He thinks everything, from the dam protest to the dismemberment of the construction manager, is an organized effort secretly conducted by the three families of the village. He even thinks the accident involving Satsuko-chan's parents wasn't an accident. That's why he keeps going back so he can talk to Satsuko-chan. No matter how many times you come, I won't let you see her. She's still crippled by the shock of her parents' deaths. Can't you understand what she's been going through? I understand. I only need a few minutes with her, really. It won't take long at all. If you want me to get a warrant, I will. But that's pretty serious, you know? I'm being considerate of Hojo-san, and that's why I haven't gotten a warrant. What are you trying to ask her anyway? I don't really understand. Well, actually, it's possible that the fall was not an accident. I know the Hojo couple were hated by the whole village after the business with the dam. But who would actually follow them on their trip and push them off? Don't you think that's absurd? Well, we could call it an accident. But if that was the case, there are some things which just don't make sense. Why lie? With those lies, I don't think it was an accident. What lies? Well, Satsuko Hojo-san said she was asleep in the car at the time of the accident. I think that story sounds a little off, doesn't it? Satsuko-chan claims she was asleep in the back seat when the accident took place. So she didn't get out of the car at the viewing platform. When she woke up, she didn't see her parents. Then she found out they had fallen off the cliff. Where's the lie exactly? You aren't saying Satsuko-chan wasn't really asleep and she went over to the viewing platform with her parents, are you? That's right. Satsuko Hojo-san was never asleep. She got out of the car with her parents and went to the viewing platform. I'm suddenly hit by a terrible possibility. If what Uishi says is true, and Satsuko-chan is saying she didn't go to the viewing platform, even though she actually did, it's terrible to even imagine. Yeah, so it's a defense mechanism by her to forget that she saw her parents die. Why are you saying such a thing? Besides, why would Satsuko-chan lie? That's just it. Why would Satsuko Hojo-san lie? That's why I need to talk to her. Otherwise, this won't end as just a simple accident. Why are you convinced that Satsuko-chan is lying? This accident took place in a different jurisdiction. The guys from the Shirakawa station conducted the interviews with the parties involved. There are things that bother me in their report. Bother you? Like what? According to Satsuko Hojo-san's statement, her parents asked her to come with them to the viewing platform, but she was sleepy, so she didn't get out of the car. Then she fell asleep and woke up after a while. She became concerned because her parents hadn't come back, and started to cry. One of the park workers on patrol noticed her crying and talked to her, and that's how the accident was discovered. And at that time, guess what? According to the park worker's testimony, she was the one who first said her parents had fallen off the cliff. But you see, it's hard to see the accident site in question from where the car was parked. If you look very carefully, you might be able to notice the broken fence. But still, I think it's odd to say your parents had fallen off the cliff just because you didn't see them when you woke up. Normally, most people would say something like their parents went for a walk and didn't come back. It just doesn't make sense to me that she told a stranger that her parents had fallen off a cliff without even being at the site of the accident. I want to ask her why she was so certain that her parents had fallen off a cliff. That's why I keep coming back here. I asked her many times before she was admitted here, but all she said was that she didn't remember, or that she was confused at the time. Sounds like a politician, huh? That's why I think it's worth taking that time to talk to her. That terrifying possibility has turned to certainty in my head. I'd assumed that her parents' accident triggered her terminal symptoms. But no. Satoru-chan had already gone terminal. Just before the accident, her heart was filled with paranoia that drove her mad. She was under a lot of stress because of her bad relationship with her stepfather. She was also being scolded by her mother for not being able to get along with him. If that made her paranoid, made her think her parents considered her to be a bother, and were going to kill her, maybe she killed them. When they went to the viewing platform, she must have thought they were going to push her off the cliff. Then a tragedy took place, and she pushed her parents off instead, although she considered it to have been self-defense. I doubt that. She's too young. I'm certain of that because I know Hinamizawa syndrome better than anybody. This accident isn't an accident. It isn't a crime either, like Oishi is thinking. It's simply a tragedy. When I talked to Satoshi-kun about the family, I was even more convinced. He told me even though Satoru-chan refused to open up to her stepfather, he had tried to communicate with her. It's true their relationship didn't go well in the beginning. Satoru-chan caused trouble repeatedly, and even called the city's child abuse hotline. At that point, they received guidance from the Child Consultation Center, and they pointed out that the problem lay in lack of communication between daughter and stepfather. So the stepfather took a parenting course under the social worker's guidance, and awkward as though it was, he made efforts to communicate with her. Satoshi-kun noticed his efforts, so he tried to talk to Satoru-chan about it. But Satoru-chan didn't notice them at all. The excessive stress she was under triggered terminal symptoms, and she couldn't understand her stepfather's remorse. On the contrary, her stepfather's change created even more mistrust within her. As a result, they went to enjoy the beautiful view of the Shirakawa Nature Park as a family, and to share in that joy. Yet that humble, ordinary family's wish couldn't even get through to Satoru-chan. What a tragic misunderstanding. Satoru-chan stayed in the car telling her parents that she wanted to sleep, but then she got out and snuck up behind them. I bet he heard her footsteps. He pretended not to notice her, thinking that she was doing that to surprise him. It's sad just thinking about what must have ran through his mind. While he thought he had finally gotten through to her, she was actually approaching him with the intent to kill. But that's not Satoru-chan's true nature. It's the disease. Satoru-chan isn't the only one who's to be pitied. Her parents are its victims too. And now, Oishi thinks she's a criminal. Judgment and punishment are required for crimes with a malicious intent. But what she really needs is understanding and sympathy. And no one has that understanding, except for me, because I know about Hinamizawa syndrome. I'm the director of the Erie Institute, but I've never behaved as such or exercised that authority. But I'm going to do so for the first time since taking the position. Yeah, I feel like I broke some fragments because of their requirement. This and the Sashi talk should have been done before administering it. And being like, okay, we've had such a good success. I'm not doing it as the head of the Erie Institute, the secret research organization. I'm doing it as a doctor so I can protect Satoru-chan. It's about the Hojo family's accident at the Shirakawa Nature Park. Do you think you can ask Okunogi-san from the Mountain Dogs to make it out to be an accident? Oh. Sure, of course. That's no problem. The Mountain Dogs are a unit specialized in concealment and manipulation, after all. We have to put an end to it quickly, otherwise the police will end up getting closer to finding out about our research. That's right. Please make especially sure Oishi-san is drawn away from this case. We're at a delicate stage of the drug administration test. She doesn't need any more unnecessary stress. You're absolutely right. I'll let the dogs know. I heard they even have connections within the police, so I'll give the order to put pressure on them too. I'm sure the accident in Shirakawa will be concluded as exactly that within a few days. With that, it was declared an accident. Only if it really was one, it would have eased Satsuko-chan's soul. Getting rid of the pathogen can't heal that wounded soul, nor can it erase the tragedy that already took place. All I can do is my best, so the day she regains her smile comes sooner. Alright, so I'm going to stop here, but I'm going to start writing down my next steps so I remember them. And before I do that, I want to click read this one. I want to read the requirements for that other one where it's like, we did it! So first we have this one. He must not be allowed to visit, and his sense of responsibility, which I feel is required for the sin one, right here. Test results are required. And over here, we have the test results and his decision, which I feel like I forget what his decision even is. And what's this one? The discontinuation, which comes from this, I believe. Or no, it's from something else, I think. And his motive to become a doctor. I feel like the motive to become a doctor is like irrelevant at that point. Maybe. I feel like that's more for this. What else do we have? Anyway, I should start writing down some of this stuff. None of this is illegal. Distrust. That's definitely one way you can do. Let's start doing some editing. Oops, I did reply instead of edit. All right. So, Rika's mom's distrust. Page 2. Mysterious death. Execution order. We don't have that for a while still, probably. That. Death of Koizumi. We don't have that yet. Same with this and this. And we have the roll of 1. I'm going to test that now, so I'm going to leave that out for a few moments. Sashi's part-time job and footsteps. We don't have those at all. Awareness of his sins are there. Rena's not there yet. We have the family move, which is from that probably. 4th year's curse. Ryu's family move is required. Don't have that. This one. Formation of the club. We have this ready, I believe. Furude couple. Furude couple. We don't have that yet. T-set and his father. That's it there. So, do we really just have his mom and then that lets us do the curse? I feel like it is. Fourth sacrifice, that's off. Execution order for your 3rd year's curse, which I think is from that. So I'm gonna Alright, now I'm just going to test that one on page 4, I think. Yes. See if this fragment is unlocked. It isn't. Okay. Right, I've edited that, so we are all set to end. I forgot to save, didn't I? I don't like having these shatters, so I'm going to reload real quick. It just bothers me so much. So I'm just going to speed through these real quick, even though that's probably like 3 or 4 fragments I have to go through. Wait, what? Did I not save for a while? No, it's not that bad. As bad as I thought. L5's patient and help from the Queen Carrier. We have that, right? First sacrifice. Live specimen is required, so yes. Skip. No, I'm just going to end the stream here so that you guys don't have to sit through this anymore. Next stream is Potion Craft on Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Have a good rest of your day while I sit through this for like 10 minutes. Bye-bye. Have a good rest of your morning, day, or evening.